The story starts in a room where the light was so bright that it shone on the face of the main character named Lee Hwan and wakes him up from his sleep. When he woke up, he wondered where he was at the moment while looking at his palms. In this situation, a note suddenly appeared above his head, and it was a description of Lee Hwan, who was deep in thought. The note wrote, "His hand, poking out from the blanket, looked a bit too soft and weak for someone who stood above everyone else using his fist. The hand of one unacquainted with martial arts. This was the hand of his past, when he still had nothing." Lee Hwan, who read it, was confused and wondered what the note meant. Then suddenly a system popped up, telling him he had started his first paragraph. Lee Hwan asked himself, "Is that a status window?" It didn't take long for the next note to appear. The confusion didn't last long. Lee Hwan had a look of clarity as he said status window. Suddenly the system warned him that the world was collapsing and told him not to speak sentences that did not conform to the world's arrangements. Lee Hwan panicked and started to wonder again why the place had started crumbling and falling apart. The system then explained that it was a fantasy web novel genre and had no status window. He angrily asks, "How the heck do I supposed to know about the setting?" As his room crumbled into dust, Lee Hwan realized that it was his first death. Miraculously, he wakes up again in the same room, looking depressed and frustrated because it turns out that he has died several times, and returns to the same place. Lee Hwan seems to be trapped inside the web novel world where his actions and words are reflected in reality. In this novel that he is living in, there's a guy named Lee Hwan who is destined to regress due to some unknown reasons. Then, he ended up transmigrating into Lee Hwan's body. How does he know that? It's because he's not actually Lee Hwan. He remembers his past as an ordinary office worker and indeed has a brief stint as a web novel writer, although he wasn't very successful. But for him, it didn't matter. Because after he looked in the mirror, he started to realize that what mattered was that Lee Hwan's body was too cool and handsome. According to him, the writer of this story should have changed the genre to romance because his face was too beautiful. After that, he then sat on the bed while being aware of the fact that a single line from him could cause the world to collapse, which meant he was the main character of this web novel. So he went back to wondering if he could do whatever he wants. Trying to satisfy this curiosity, he then declared aloud, "I swear, this life will be all about fulfilling my own self-interest." After that, a note reappeared, writing his words, and the system told him to finish the prologue. To his surprise, it actually worked. But then, he was again confused, after the system showed him that the author was debating for the title of this web novel, and decided that the title of the novel was "The Fist King is Only Interested in Himself." It took him completely by surprise. Not only that, but suddenly a beautiful man with long silver hair appeared, saying that he had a good feeling about this. Lee Hwan was shocked and asked who the man was, and the man replied that people used to call him God, but right now he wanted to be called author. The silver-haired man explained to him that was the reason why he brought him into his world of creation. Lee Hwan paused, wondering why a god had appeared out of nowhere. The god smiled. "The way I write my novel would be different than the way your people do it," said the god profoundly. "Wait, God! I mean author!" Lee Hwan interrupted. "I know a thing or two about web novels, so how about instead of Fist King, you use the strongest character in the world is only interested in himself as the title?" Lee Hwan continued that the title is very important at this time, to which the god responds that he will consider it. "Anyway, I won't work for free. If my novel gets picked up as an official job and reaches the #1 spot, then I will grant you a wish," said the god. "If you like this place, then you could stay here forever. You can get whatever you wanted, even everything that you have imagined before. That's why you have to live a life befitting of the main character." Of course, Lee Hwan is happy to help because that way he can finally escape his life as a minor character. He then asks the author what he should do and how the story will move forward. But the author just left, telling him they could discuss it later. Lee Hwan was left alone and confused. Even though he called for God or the author, he didn't get any answer. Nonetheless, he was grateful that the author had made him the main character in a novel, and he then excitedly put on his jacket, saying it was time for him to take a look at this new world. Suddenly, the system told him that the web serialization of his novel had started. He looked confused again, especially after he saw the serial titled, "The Strongest Character in the World is Only Interested in Himself." The author is I Am God, the genre is a modern fantasy, and the summary says that Lee Hwan is the strongest character in the world. But he regressed. He is no longer the man he was in the past. All he cares about is his own self-interest. He was completely shocked to read the notes from the system, and in disbelief that the author continued Chapter 1 without any plan at all. He shook his head, knowing that it might have worked in the past, but it won't work any longer at this point. He couldn't believe a god called himself an author, but he didn't even know anything about the current trend. But whatever the case may be, it doesn't change the fact that he is a regressed main character. In the note, it was written that Lee Hwan had to recover his power first. He stood up to call the author, and asked what kind of martial arts Lee Hwan studied in the past, and told the author that he was not expecting anything too grand. The system told him that his martial arts had been decided as Heavenly Demon's divine arts, surprising him because the technique was an ultimate martial arts form that included breathing and cultivation, sword, fist, palm, step techniques, and more. Mastering even one of them would make him a master of the martial arts, but mastering all of them would lead him to transcendence. Information about the Heavenly Demon divine art was pouring into his head, so he thought it was no wonder that Lee Hwan become the main character. Martial Arts Heavenly Demon's Grand 12 Pressure Point technique has been added. It is a pressure point technique created by the Heavenly Demon after fighting the 12 zodiacs of the Heavenly Realm. Then 3 breathing techniques and the cultivation of the Heavenly Demon divine art were added. The 3 breathing techniques were Heavenly Demon Lotus breathing technique, Exalted breathing technique, and Hell breathing technique. He was amazed that it was such fast plot development, and couldn't believe that he could learn so many things at once. He studied the Heavenly Divine Arts 3 breathing techniques and cultivation, and he felt like he could use them. Lee Hwan closed his hands, wondering if he could test the power. Before that could happen, suddenly someone was banging hard on his door, telling him that he knew that Lee Hwan is inside, so he had to open the door before he knocked it down. He was confused about who it was and what exactly was going on. The author tells him that he just brought a rando into the story, and Lee Hwan should figure out the rest, leading him to ask if the author meant he just brought random people so he could test his strength. Lee Hwan knows that every author writes differently, but according to him, this author is kind of off the rails. Hey, you should be smarter if you're going to change the password. Who the heck uses 0000 as their password? Mocked the rando that managed to enter his house. Then the yellow-shirted man closed the door, telling Lee Hwan that he must be having fun right now. Lee Hwan was confused about what the man was talking about after appearing out of nowhere. He braced himself together and thought a third-rate thug appeared right as the regressed main character recovered his powers. The answer was obvious. He's Lee Hwan's power checker. You came at the right time, said Lee Hwan to the rando. The man's name is Kwon Sang-hoo. He's an extra whose only role is to take money from Lee Hwan. He tells Sang-hoo that there is something he wants to test with his body, making Sang-hoo angry, and launches a punch to hit him while asking if he is senile. But Lee Hwan easily avoided it. He wondered why Sang-hoo's movement was so slow, and he thought it was boring. Sang-hoo angrily asked him how he keeps dodging his punches, and Lee Hwan replied that it was too easy as Sang-hoo was slow. The angry Sang-hoo tried to punch him again, but he just smirked. In that split second, Lee Hwan sees that the memory of the original Lee Hwan started to flash right before his eyes. He blocked a punch using his hand while Lee Hwan's memories from before the regression where he fought with martial arts flowed into his head, and his body responded to that. Sang-hoo blocked his attack with his shoulder, but then Lee Hwan shouted once again, twisting his fist and using the 7th form of the Heavenly Demon Divine Art, sending Sang-hoo flying hard, then slamming against the door and crashing to the floor. Lee Hwan waved his hand because using the technique hurt his hand too. He then walks over to Sang-hoo and said, You have lived too long without proper lessons in life. Not everything you sees is as it seems. Don't believe everything you see, for there is no such thing as justice in this world. Suddenly the author appears behind him, telling him that the line he just said is good, and that it is very fitting for the main character. Lee Hwan asks the author what the main character does with his martial arts, and whether he should live according to his self-interest. Lee Hwan tells the author that he likes that his body is so strong, but he wonders what would happen next. While he was excited by the author's reply, the author awkwardly replied that it was because of revenge. The author tells him that Lee Hwan suffered a regression because he was killed, so they should have revenge as the end goal, shocking him. Lee Hwan tells the author that it is different from what the summary says, but the author replies he just changed it. He feels uncomfortable and asks the author, where is the man he should seek revenge on? But the author turns around asking why he wants to know everything in the first place and tells him he should learn as he goes. Lee Hwan seriously tells the author to tell the truth and asks him if he's just making this up and if nothing is planned. The author just laughs awkwardly and tells him not to worry too much since this time it's different from before. Lee Hwan angrily asks what's different when nothing is planned. "You're the main character," said the god. "You are going to create this novel together with me, in this world, where you live as the main character. How about it? Doesn't that seem awesome?" Lee Hwan was quiet as he wonders about the words that God had said. "I can create it? I don't have to do as I'm told. This might be an opportunity, a chance for me to achieve my dream," he thought. Suddenly he hears Sang-hoo, who wakes up behind him. Lee Hwan squat down, saying that Sang-hoo has taken about $3,000 from him and said that he have to return $30,000 after interest. But in reality, Lee Hwan was just making it up. He was testing the way this novel works. Just like he guessed, Sang-hoo panicked. "How am I supposed to get 30 grand so quickly?" Lee Hwan answered, "That was none of my business. You should do whatever it takes to get the money. Even the loan shark goblins let thugs like you borrow money, don't they?" While wondering if Lee Hwan could make up something like that, Sang-hoo ran away screaming that he didn't want to pay. The author thought that the existence of goblins in the martial arts world was fresh and interesting, so he thought he should add a fantasy element. As the author did so, he was happy to add the orc race, the elf race, and the dwarf race to the story as well. On the other hand, Lee Hwan is seen smirking at the situation. He didn't expect this to actually work. Whatever Lee Hwan says will be reflected in the world setting, which is awesome. Suddenly the system tells him that the author has been inspired, and when he looks back, he sees the author saying they should use dimension collision and combine the various worlds of the fantasy world and the world of martial arts because of the incident today. The system says that the author is excited, while he wonders when it should have happened, and decides that the crash occurred around the end of World War II, and therefore his history is different from what they know. With So being able to explain how martial arts stand out as well as the existence of fantasy races, the author happily dances around saying that it will work, and Lee Hwan thinks it's a bit exaggerated, but he laughs and tells the author that story seems to come out nicely, so he's looking forward to it. The system shows him that Dimension Collision World will be set up around the end of WW2. Due to a certain incident in the universe, the fantasy world and martial arts world collided, with their dimensions crossing over to Earth in a phenomenon known as the Dimension Collision. Lee Hwan opened the door thinking the author's new idea wasn't bad, and he thought it didn't need much detail, but he liked that it wasn't your usual everyday dimensional collision. He was grateful because the main character's premise of knowing martial arts came naturally, and it was time for him to go to the exciting world created by the author and himself. The system informed Lee Hwan that the author has finished writing the last paragraph of the first chapter of The World's Strongest Character is Only Interested in Himself. He looks around and is amazed to see a world where Murim, modern times, and fantasy coexist, and he thinks it really fits that world. As he looks around, he sees posters promoting a gold card releasing a massive hit. Even zero interest for 30 days makes him realize that everything he says is reflected literally. Then he kept walking, knowing he needed to make his body strong enough to do martial arts, so he wondered where he could go to do it. Depending on his words and thoughts, the main character, Lee Hwan's old memories emerge and become a part of him. Naturally, when he thought of the goal in his head, it became a setting, and finally a reality. He arrived at the Murim Federation. When the system informed him that the National Murim Federation was being added, the martial artist established the Murim Federation after the formation of an alliance between the unjust faction and the just faction. From National Agency Nation was added, he decided, adding that from then on he would try and steer the story to the safe side, because it's a story world where the writer calls himself God, and they create stories together. The receptionist asked him how he should help him, and he told him to wait a bit while he looked for something. All he knew was that since he was the protagonist of the regression, there would be something he needed, there. Then he gave the lady a piece of paper, and told her that she wanted to register as a martial artist. It was a martial artist application form with her name, her birthday, and other information. The woman tells him that his proposal has been accepted to her delight, and promises herself that she will become the strongest character in the world as in the title. The woman told him she might go straight for the interview. She goes to the interview, and the man tells her that is enough for her interview, and she has done her best, to which she agrees. Then the man asks him if he really said that he doesn't know his clan name or teacher name, then tell him that he might not know who they are, but they would be proud to have a talented student like him. The man named Ju Won-baek, and he is the consul of the embassy of the Murim Federation in Korea, and the person in charge of the interview. He also told him that, as you know, after the dimensional collision, everything got messy, and there are many people who can't get used to the world and are left to fend for themselves, especially parents. He also tells him that nowadays, many people call them righteous, so he should be proud of his teacher and welcomes him. Then tells him that he can keep his current nationality. But if he wants to devote himself to the Murim Federation, he can. He thank you for thinking so highly of him, but he thinks he took too long and he didn't come there to listen to him talk about world management. He tells you that the real reason he came all the way there is not to meet the consul of the embassy of the Murim Federation, but to meet the leader Ju Won-baek of the Dragon Sword clan. Ju Won-baek is surprised that he knows his clan, and tells him that he wants to know what she has to say, and tells him to feel free to tell her what he has to say. With that said, Lee Hwan said he would get straight to the point, and say there was something that the current Dragon Sword clan possessed, and that was First Heaven's decree of original fire. He thought that there must be an event there, and it was something like one of the treasures that the protagonist had before the regression. The system informed him that Heaven's decree's first treasure of the original fire restraining heavenly demon soul had been added, and Ju Won-baek's character role had been upgraded from extra to a support character. He told Lee Hwan that he had come to take it as its rightful owner. Ju Won-baek angrily asks him if he only said that he is the rightful owner, and how dare he make such a claim. After saying his name, he loosens his tie, telling her he doesn't know why she is after their precious treasure, but she tells him to better start explaining things. Seeing Ju Won-baek angry, he thought he was no different from a murderous ghost. Even though he saw Ju Won-baek's reaction, everything went as he planned. Then he activated the Grand 12 Heavenly Demons. Pressure point techniques have been added, making his senses heightened. Then he activates another Heavenly Demon. 12 great pressure point techniques, making his ki increase. He is surprised that his techniques are unbalanced, and he still has 10 more out of 12 of them, but his strength is already as great as this. Ju Won-baek calls him a poor soul, and tells him easily that he used his ki, so he thinks he has a death wish, and asks who sent him here. But he just smiles, wondering if he looks like someone whose life is going to end there, and he may not look like that, but he is the protagonist of the novel. Ju Won-baek tells him that if you don't answer him, then he will reveal his own dark secret and attack him, but he avoids it, and is amazed that Ju Won-baek is so fast. He wondered if it was Ju Won-baek's real character, and he was happy that he heightened his senses, or it will be a short story. Ju Won-baek was impressed by him because he managed to avoid the Thousand Beast Slam martial art. The Thousand Beast Slam was one of the special techniques used by the Dragon Sword clan, and those with experience saw it as more difficult than a celestial sword. Lee Hwan reminds the author that he has to do his job because the protagonist of the story is currently in danger. Suddenly, Ju Won-baek appears in front of him and continuously attacks him, but he blocks and avoids them. He wonders if he is facing the same person, as they are all different from what he had seen in Lee Hwan's past, but he realized that something was different because it wasn't the skill of someone from the second generation. He attacked him back, even though he didn't know who he really was, Ju Won-baek. But he just wanted the old man to hand over the treasure, that treasure. Ju Won-baek had already jumped in the air to dodge his attack, and he was surprised when he saw Ju Won-baek hurtling towards him, while the system told him that Ju Won-baek's character was being repaired, and showed him additional context saying that Ju Won-baek had pretended to be Generation Secondly. Due to Ju Won-baek, he is actually the first Gen martial artist to appear after the dimensional collision. Then Sword Dragon named Ju Ho-won attacks him using 1,000 bloom attacks. He calls the author, asking if it's just him, or if the difficulty of the fight has been increased, as Ju Won-baek's attacks are too strong. He was continuously attacked. As he stood in one place blocking all of his attacks, he realized that Ju Won-baek's person didn't disappear, and his attacks felt like thousands of shapeless blades were rushing towards him. There was no time for him to think about how Lee Hwan was portrayed in novels, and it was pure instinct. He clenched his fists hard and positioned his feet on the ground. Activating his 7th form took him by surprise, and punched his chest hard, sending him flying far and slamming into the wall. He was shocked by what he did, and knew that he gave it his all when he thought he should win, but he wondered what was with that power. He knows that Ju Won-baek is a normal guy trying to protect his clan's treasure, and he just punched him like he was a sack of potatoes, so he was sure that there would obviously be comments about him being an irrational jerk. Ju Won-baek, who coughs up blood while saying that he has the first heaven's edict of real fire. But he won't be able to take it from him because Ju Won-baek will protect him even if it cost him his life. Ju Won-baek falls to the ground and coughs up blood, but still asks him if he thinks he's the only one trying to get heaven's first decree on genuine fire, leaving him shocked and panicked because no matter how he looks at it, he's the villain. So he was wondering what kind of system settings could make Lee Hwan not look like a bad guy, but also mediate the situation smoothly. Luckily, he got a good idea. He gently touched Ju Won-baek, asking again about why he would willingly fight with the body that was so damaged. She tells him that he must have gone through a lot of hardships, and it is the greatest treasure for him. But it must be a deadly poison for him. He tells Ju Won-baek gently that the Dragon Sword clan no longer has to carry such a heavy burden. The promise between the heavenly demon and Buddha was also an absolute rule that had been passed down by the winners, and that was the energy of the heavenly demon lotus breathing technique. The system told him that the original fire treasure's first heaven decree was being repaired, and the reason was the greatest treasure to him. But it must be a deadly poison for him. The Dragon Sword clan no longer needed to carry such a heavy burden. Then Ju Won-baek released a strong flame and it formed a circle which shocked him. The system showed him an additional context, saying if someone who is not a successor of the heavenly demon lotus breathing technique endures it, they will suffer from extreme heat 4 times in a year. And the way to pull it out of the body would have the successor of the heavenly demon lotus breathing technique take it. That the power of fire overflowing within its body was magic. Any technique or curse based on fire became useless against it, let alone 60 years worth of Kai to come together with the heavenly demon divine art. It created a positive energy of intense heat known as the celestial flame, and a searing energy wrapped around his body. He looks at his hand, realizing that it is a flaming heaven. Records show that after years, the long-wished wish of the Dragon Sword clan was granted, so Ju Won-baek bowed to him, saying, he bowed before the heavenly demon. He saw shocked Ju Won-baek, and he smiled because it made him feel like he was really the protagonist of the story. The system told him that the author had finished the last paragraph, and Chapter 2 was 100% complete. Then Ju Won-baek gave him an ID card while telling him that it was the best grade he had the authority to give it to. Lee Hwan took it, and noticed that it was an advanced martial arts card. Would have at least had a bit of trouble doing what he wanted. At that rate, he was grateful for the consideration. But Ju Won-baek gave him another card while explaining that he got it, because it seemed like he needed his own training ground. Ju Won-baek also explained that he visited the place every year when he experienced the extreme turmoil of the first heaven's decree on the original fire. But now it's a spare house that he doesn't use, so he would appreciate him using it. Ju Won-baek tells him that whenever he needs him, all he has to do is just call him. Then she bowed to him, telling him that she would do everything she could to support him, making him realize that the situation created through change was in fact beneficial to him, and he confidently thought his ability to think quickly was extraordinary. He stretched himself, realizing that now that he had the treasure, and he also got the key he needed, he thought it was about time he entered the main story. Then he calls the author to ask what they should do with the next story, and tells the author that now the protagonist has gained power. He thought it was time for a real battle. Then he asked if the opponent he was about to face would not be weak. The system showed him that the author looked happy, and told him that he was excited because he was already waiting for the next story. He started walking thinking the author seemed happy, but agreed, because indeed the most interesting part was when he started writing the story. So he was looking forward to what the writer had in mind for the next chapter. Author suddenly added the devil race in the world. The setting of the counterside world made him surprised, and wondered what exactly the counterside world was. The system explained that the counterside world was a world that had continuously developed since the day the dimensional collision started, and the demons that appeared in the counterside world were creatures that had never been seen in the Murim or fantasy worlds. With that knowledge, they can assume that the demon dimension also collides with their current dimension. He says the storyline becomes too grand for comfort. At that time, the system told him that they could sort them into 3 major groups: dungeon type, mutant type, and summoner type, and more explanation made him shake his head. Out of frustration, he told the author to stop it and tell him stories which have many words we are not popular in today's era. Suddenly the author appeared, telling him not to worry because the writing went very smoothly. But he thought it was not a problem. His problem was, he put all kinds of material into the story when even one of those things would be difficult to make the storyline good for, filled with motivation. But he wonders what the writer will do with all that, and most importantly when the author will start the main story. But he just walks away thinking God is an author. So he thinks the author will still wonder, what if he left it to him, and her novel fails? Then the story will be finished as she knows that she can't miss a chance, so she has to do something back and commends the writer for making many fine arrangements. God agrees and tells her she is really good at smoothing out details. Lee Hwan at this time was like an artist who appeared like a comet, solving all the problems related to the counterside world, and that would be the focus of the story. He asked if what he said was true, but the author only paused and replied that he knew him well, and he was just about to write it, but he knows that author is a liar. After their conversation, the news tells them that there has been no contact of the Seven Phantoms or the Green Swords that entered dAnime Piano Academy. For a week, the Security Bureau held an official press conference asking for as much help as possible, and they temporarily removed the entry restrictions. Moreover, it was said that there was a demon baron by the name of Savage in the counterside world. He smiles because that's what he wants, and he hopes author to keep up the good work. He thought it was time for him to shine, so first he had to hail a taxi to go to dAnime Piano Academy. Then he arrived at his destination, and he heard the officers telling people to back off because it was a danger zone. He looked at the place and wondered if there were demons actually showed up in such a place. As it looked more normal than he thought, the officers asked him if he didn't hear them saying it was dangerous in there. But he showed his Murim Federation ID card to shut the officer up. He thought about how to be more convincing if it was related to his revenge without paying attention to who was behind it. The woman asked Lee Hwan and asked if he could take another look at his ID card. Lee Hwan asked if there was a problem, and the woman replied that she wanted to double-check. He looks at the woman while giving her ID and sees that the woman's name is Shin Yun-ah, age 28. Her role is a supporting character, and she works for the Security Bureau. The author told him that he thought they needed a new female character, so he added Shin, much to his surprise and disappointment as the author added a character for no good reason. Shin told him that his ID was issued today, and there seemed to be no talk with his superiors or anyone else regarding entering the scene. He replied that he was there because he heard there was no limit to enter, and he realized that confirmation was just standard procedure. Then Lee Hwan thanked him for coming to help, and told him that before he entered, he would show him the extra equipment and explain situation, so he asked her to follow him. He explained that 6 teams entered at the start, but that currently there were only 2 teams remaining, namely the 7 Phantoms and the Green Sword. She told him that after he entered the area, if he thought it was too dangerous, he could always go straight back, to which he agreed. But wondering if he was an NPC character or something as his words lacked emotion. Then he noticed something and was amazed to see a full metal Magnum revolver. He looked at it carefully, thinking he would like to try something like that. Shin asked him to confirm if he was a martial artist, and told him that if he was looking for the sword, it was right next to the gun. He said full metal Magnum revolver, and spun the cylinder, then told Shin that just because his was a martial artist didn't mean he was just had to use a sword. The system shows that his character has been upgraded, and the additional context shows that he has experience with all types of firearms. Before he backed off, which made him have a keen eye for weapons. Lee Hwan, holding the gun, charmingly asked if he disagreed, but really asked the author. He then goes inside the building and sees destroyed rooms and things everywhere. The author tells him that the place called Parallel World is a reality-based mutant type. Basically, the area got really big, and he asked him if it wasn't better to have a big space to fight in. He replied that bigger doesn't always mean better. Then he looked down and was surprised to see many dead people lying on the ground. He noticed that one of the people had the number 7 on his clothes, and remembered Shin's words that there were only 2 teams left, namely 7 Phantom and Green Sword. He looked at the dead, wondering if they were all wiped out, and he also touched the back of one of the dead, thinking that he had an idea to appear suddenly and clean all up like a hero while the people were fighting. He asked the author if it's not too dangerous, but the author asks back what he's talking about and tells him that he should think about Lee Hwan before he backs down. The author reminds him that his beloved Lee Hwan is the strongest person in that world, and he agrees to stop the enemy. After the author finished speaking, then he decided to take out all the weapons first. He stood up, realizing that no matter how skilled he was, it was never a bad thing to be careful. When he couldn't expect what would happen, he picked up the grenade on the ground, knowing that he couldn't let his guard down on the author. Suddenly, in the principal's office, he hears a loud bang and sees a bright light inside. He looks at him then, and stands up, realizing he was right about the author being unsuspected. Lee Hwan smiled and ran towards the principal's office, excited about the things he was about to discover. As he ran, he bit the pin of the grenade and immediately threw it into the office. It rolled to the ground and exploded, killing several monsters in the office. After the smoke came out, and he went in when he thought it was safe. But suddenly he heard demons screaming from above him, and they attacked him from behind. The devil's name is Sharpman, who possesses agility and has good jumping power, biting enemies with his teeth or slashing with his sharp hands. When the demon was close to bite him, he slashed them with his sword with ease. Then he came out of the office telling the author that he had done quite a good job. Also didn't expect that the author created such dirty things. Suddenly, he heard a loud scream made him look back, and he saw a demon named Sharpman Leader. It possessed intense killing intent, and even an expert or third circle mage couldn't guarantee their victory against him. In the midst of Sharpman Leader, it is called the Heart of Demon, also known as Evil Heart, a spoil that can be obtained in this world, and is used in various ways after processing. The Sharpman Leader then immediately opened his mouth, and his scream loudly made him cover one of his ears and say that his ear hurts. Suddenly the ground shook, and he heard many footsteps behind him. When he looked back, he saw many Sharpman demons coming towards him. He held tightly onto his sword while saying it was a big event, and asked the demons around him if they were all there. Sharpman Leader once again shouted loudly. He decided to get rid of the noisy ones first because he might get noise complaints because of it. He slides towards him to attack him, but Sharpman and demons protect their captain. Immediately he slashes demons that get in his way, but more demons close in on him to attack. He managed to balance himself on the ground when a demon jumps up to bite him from behind. He looks back and stabs his mouth in time. He picks up his gun on the ground and aims it at the demons, then shoots them continuously. When his gun ran out of bullets, he threw it on the ground and pulled his sword into Satan's mouth and told that Captain Sharpman they had to keep him screaming at him angrily. He then takes something from his pocket and takes out a bunch of grenades, saying that they were a gift for him. He throws the bomb at the monster in the smoke. Someone told him that originally, Lee Hwan's power was around 2nd tier level, but thanks to Flaming Heavens it was now around 3rd tier level. Then someone came out of the smoke, and it was the author who then asked why he didn't use the new form of the Grand 12 Heavenly Demon Pressure Point technique once he met Savage for the grand final battle in his 7th form, because he had thought about it. The author also asks him why they don't call it single strike dragon slaying, and explains that it means slaying a dragon with one hit. He replies good, but tells the author that other than that, he thinks it would be better if he could gain something from his current place. Suddenly Captain Sharpman jumps at him to attack, even taking the author by surprise, but he blocks it while telling the author it's good that he was there to deal with said parallel world. Then the devil tries to stab him from above while he tells the author that he thinks he must have a purpose to come to meet this savage devil. He jumps to avoid the devil's attack while asking the author if it will make the chapter more interesting later, and the author happily agrees to ask to him what is good. The demon angrily launched to attack him once again. While he told the author that he should have thought about it first, he jumped to the ground, then landed on the devil's shoulder, then used it to jump higher, and readied his sword in the air to kill the demon while telling the author to think of the reason behind something before he created it. And then he knocked down the Sharpman Leader, then he slid into the devil and stabbed him. Inwardly he asks the author if he has finished creating the story. The author says yes, and tells him that he has everything prepared as he tries to draw his sword into the demon's heart. The system informed him that Lee Hwan's past was the successor of the Heavenly Horse had been added, explaining to him that Lee Hwan had come to that place after retreating for one purpose, and that was the legacy of the Heavenly Horse. Before Lee Hwan's regression, Baron Savage left a parallel world summoning essence after his death, and there was a legend that if someone used it, they would be able to obtain the legacy of the Heavenly Horse. As a result, a war raged among the strong, regardless of race. At that time, Lee Hwan was only a 3rd-class martial art, and he participated in the war, following his master, the Frostblade King. Even the great sorcerer Megrez led troops into the field they planned to end the war once and for all. After a long and hard battle, the winner is Lee Hwan, the sole survivor, and as such, he claims ownership of the legacy of the Heavenly Horse. He asks the author to confirm if Savage has the legacy, and he says yes. Then the author explains that since the war hasn't happened yet, there will be lots of secret documents and treasure in it. He says that the sooner he gets his hands on it, the better, and thinks that now he has returned, hence time is on his side. The author cheerfully told him to continue the fantastic work which Lee Hwan agreed to while touching his stomach, and decided to finish it quickly as he was a bit hungry. He continues walking in the corridors looking for Savage. He asks where he is and tells him they need to sort it out. Then he saw one room shining. He went into the room and saw many objects floating in the air. Savage told him he wondered why Sharpman was so quiet and realized it was him who did it. Baron Savage is a demon, and he is one of the 7 flag bearers of Archduke Esgadam's team and the final boss of Grand Piano Entrance Exam Academy final boss. The parallel Savage told him he had come at the right time as he was getting bored, and it would be great if he was fun to play as the previous ones were too boring for him. As he yawned, but Lee Hwan just asked if he was done and told him to shut up and they should start fighting because he was hungry, which of course made the Savage Baron angry and asked him how dare you. Savage soared into the air and laughed while telling him that he would be fighting with an advanced devil technique, especially for a proud human. Then slowly a hand came out of the incantation he made, and he called it Advanced Demonic Technique, Hand of Deus. Lee Hwan was surprised and asked what it was. Savage teasingly asked him how he liked his strength, and immediately used the Hand of Deus to attack him, while telling him to fall into despair after witnessing his immense strength. But the 12 large pressure point technique temporarily increased his ki and single strike secret arts. Then he used the Dragon Slayer's single strike to attack him slowly until the Hand of Deus cracked, leaving Savage in shock and couldn't believe what was happening. It started to crack more, and seconds later, it actually broke apart, showing a stunned Savage watching the pieces of the Hand of Deus fall to the ground. Lee Hwan said to watch himself and not let his guard down, which of course surprised the Savage Baron. Then he punched him hard in the chin and took out his gun, then put it in Savage's mouth and told him that for him it was over. He then pulled the trigger, causing his head to explode into pieces. Savage's pieces slowly faded away, but he grabbed the legacy of the heavenly horse that was inside Savage's body and managed to snatch it in time. He slowly descended from the air while holding it. He looked at it and marveled at the legacy of the heavenly horse. Then the system tells him that the story of Chapter 3 has been 100%. When all was done, he held his neck in relief that it was easier than he thought. Lee Hwan then asked the sulking author in the corner if they should go eat. He watched him and wondered what was wrong with the author, even though a few moments ago he appeared after dressing up looking so excited. Suddenly, the many comment sections surrounding him took him by surprise. He read that many readers were happy with their story and excited about the next chapter. He was pleased that his comment looked pretty good and asked the author what was bothering him. Then he saw the best comment named Gwaga. The comment said that this author is a god. His style story is, if he gets tired of writing, he just kills the main character and calls it story over, then tells the author that if he doesn't want to write, also stop the series, and he continue reading it just by looking at the author name on the site. The author named Ari replied that she was sorry about that and promised that it would not happen, because at this time she had done a lot of work and invested in the development of the current main character. He told the author that he should have, telling him right away if he had such a past. But the author panicked because it was the best comment and asked what he should do. While Lee Hwan knows something is wrong, he knows that there are usually the 2 best comments for any chapter of the series. Sometimes the tone of comments spoils the series, not because he doesn't understand her panicked sentiments, because he has actually been through those hard times too. But that doesn't mean he can be forgiven for running away in the middle of a job. Then he angrily tells the author that he's sure he realized it, but the reason why that comment became the top comment is all the consequences of the author's actions, and tells him that ending the series by killing the character Main abruptly is almost as bad as ending the series too. He sternly tells the author that needless to say he deserves it, making him kneel on the ground, plus his contest ranking has dropped to 38. The author sadly says he is done, and the series will end, leaving him shocked to see how the author even thought of signing up for contest with a fragile mentality. Just like before, suddenly the world he was in was slowly breaking down and collapsing because the writer's mentality collapsed. Remembering the negative comments and wondering if he should rewrite the novel from scratch, Lee Hwan shouted at the author to calm down and wondered if the world he was in would collapse like that before he finally collapsed into unconsciousness. Then he opened his eyes, wondering what was going on, and if the novel was trashed. Then he looked at his hand. Suddenly the system tells him that the top comment has already been registered. The commenter uses the author account and says he is Frontier, and this is the most anticipated series from the contest because it contains spoilers. He will continue to write in the replies section, and he will continue to stick flags while reading it. Then he proceeds to explain a short summary of Lee Hwan's story, and at the end tells people that the writer put a lot of thought into setting up the world, so he highly recommended it. He was amazed by the comments, and knew that such a sincere comment would make a writer's day better. He sits happy and relieved that the writer made it through the bad moment. Meanwhile, at an original Old Defense restaurant, it was seen that Lee Hwan had finished eating several plates of food, but still continued to eat and really cleaned it up. The system informed him that Lee Hwan's character settings had been added, and it said that Lee Hwan's favorite food was rice soup, which was correct, and he should eat it at least once a week to calm his mind. At the freshly cooked rice soup by the side, and his mouth was watering, making him wonder if it was due to the arrangement. Shin told him to help himself because he purposely ordered it for Lee Hwan. He replied that he was fine, but if that was the case, he would take it. While he was eating, he asked why Shin had followed him there since it didn't seem like he was planning to eat. Shin thanked him for his help in destroying the parallel world and told him that they didn't expect him to solve the problem so easily. They Security Bureau have an offer on him. He asks him what offer he's talking about and wonders if the author added another setting or something. When he was about to put his food into his mouth, a small child appeared by his side. The little boy looked amazed at Lee Hwan, and when the boy saw his sword, he asked if Lee Hwan was a martial arts expert. The young child's mother apologizes to him for her son's behavior, but she answers the children's questions saying she was right, and also reveals that she recently cleaned dAnime Piano Academy. Shin shouted his name, and in shock he bid farewell to the child. Then he asked why Shin had suddenly shouted at him. Shin apologized, then explained that the information had not been disclosed. So to his surprise, Shin told him that they wanted to recruit him into their security agency. Their bureau wants to credit him with the new Lee Hwan as a member of the Security Bureau for the destruction of parallel worlds, making him wonder if that's why he's making another appearance. The system showed her the new episodes, and it explained that Shin Yun-ah, who met Lee Hwan, frequently received lessons in the inherited lost arts of unchanged cultivation technique from her after a certain incident. Then the system also showed him that the martial art of altered cultivation technique and the unchanging 7-strike sword technique had been added. He was surprised and wondered why there was a sudden addition, and he was confused whether it was a good sign or not. Shin told him that he believed there had not been any interviews and that they would help him make an official announcement regarding the parallel world's annihilation, so he felt free to do so using the press area they had set up. He also told him to feel free to tell them if there were any conditions for them to recruit him, not knowing that Lee Hwan was feeling crazy because there were additional changes to the settings, and he knew he couldn't change the arrangements already made. Now that things had turned like that, he decided to make the most of it, and told Shin that he wasn't sure about the recruitment, but he would be counting on him for the official announcement. Lee Hwan thought making a name known to the world wouldn't be such a bad idea, but stepping out on his own would feel more natural to become a recognized expert, and it would sound a lot cooler too. Then Lee Hwan asked why they didn't exchange contacts first, and told him that he would send what he needed to make an official announcement later. Sometime later in his apartment, his phone rang. He picked it up while drying his hair, and was amazed that Shin quickly chatted to him that he had confirmed what he sent, and asked if he would be okay with the plan. Shin tells him that there is a possibility that his information will be revealed, and asks if he will be fine with it. He replies no problem, and Shin tells him that they will announce it when he instructs it. Lee Hwan then threw his cell phone on the bed, knowing that it was going according to plan. Then Lee Hwan looked at the core, wondering if he would investigate the long-awaited Heavenly Demon inheritance, and told the author that he couldn't wait to see how amazing the item the system had shown him to be. The summoning orb of the parallel world, worldview, or what the old world knew as the evil orb. The evil orb connects space to where the Heavenly Demon inheritance resides, and can be used indefinitely in the evil orb, allowing him to summon and destroy parallel worlds whenever and wherever he creates them. The evil orb floated into the center of his palm, and Lee Hwan activated it, while the system showed him that the Heavenly Demon inheritance also hid countless treasures. In the process, objects in his apartment float into the air, and he wonders what amazing treasure is waiting for him. The activation was successful, but he was stunned to see a woman suddenly appear in front of him, introducing themselves as Il Xinjiang, the guardian of Qianmazon's legacy, and also a man named Wol Xinjiang, who was the guardian of Qianmazon's legacy. Upholding the Heavenly Demon inheritance and telling him that they would now test him made him wonder about what exactly was going on. The system explains that Il Xinjiang and Wol Xinjiang are the two generals of heaven, and they protect the inheritance on the orders of the Heavenly Demon. Also, the two divine generals tested whether the newcomers were worthy of inheriting the Heavenly Demon inheritance. He realized that the place was not only filled with treasures, but the author told him that they were treasures, but they shouldn't be taken so easily. He replied that he already knew and already possessed the heavenly demon divine art, and angrily asked what kind of trial would take place. The author replied that there were two types of tests, the first being that, when abilities were less than that of a first-tier martial artist, they would be pushed to the limit and test their willpower and will. He would know he had passed the test when he was above a certain level, because no one could destroy the illusion with an earthly body. The second is when the participants have become strong, and it will be a battle with two divine generals. And if there is a group of arrivals, the two generals can also mobilize their celestial army. He stopped the author, who was in control of this situation, from explaining, and asked if he thought it made sense and if he should do this urgently. Suddenly, Il Xinjiang stops him, who seems to be rambling to himself, and tells him to stop thinking up pretty tricks and prepare himself for the exam soon. He held his fist in salute and told the generals it was great to see them both there again, and asked if they might recognize him. Then Lee Hwan introduced himself to them as Lee Hwan, a junior who had passed their previous exam. The system showed him that Lee Hwan passed the illusion test of two divine generals was added. The son asked Il Xinjiang if he knew him, and Il Xinjiang replied, "Maybe he is a big deal the higher-ups were talking about." Lee Hwan explained that a few days ago he traveled back in time and became young, thinking that if it's such a big deal in the regulatory world, this must be it. Now the plan had to be right. He told them that he knew very well what test they gave, and explained what kind of test the previous system said it was. He also told them that the flaming heavens was flowing in his body, and he had taken back the source of the flaming heavens, first heaven's decision of the original flames of the Dragonsword clan. He assured them that he could show them either the heavenly demon fist technique, or the heavenly demon sword technique, or whatever they want. Author angrily asks him if he really passed such a test without taking it, but he only teasingly asks author back what being a regressor is for, and tells him that it is for such things. The boys ask Il Xinjiang how he knew about their exam, and Il Xinjiang replies that obviously he must have heard it from somewhere. Wu Xinjiang draws her sword, angrily asks him how dare he make fun of them, making him panic as it was not what he expected. Wu Xinjiang points his sword at him, ordering him to stop playing around and try to stop them, but Il Xinjiang just pats Wu Xinjiang on the head, using his spear, telling him to calm down, and asking him how he will take responsibility if what he said is true. Wu Xinjiang asks about what she is talking about, and accidentally calls her elder sister. Il Xinjiang explains to him that while wearing heaven flaming as a form of energy armor, and he knows exactly their exam, but Wu Xinjiang tells Il Xinjiang that he is trying to trick them with his words. While Lee Hwan acts sincere among the generals, Il Xinjiang tells Wu Xinjiang that he is too old-fashioned, and that's why he is stuck there without getting a promotion, making Wu Xinjiang furious, and asking what that has to do with him. Il Xinjiang looks at him and calls out his name, then tells him that if he does pass the test, they want to be treated to a meal, and instructs him to try to guess what their favorite is. He was surprised when he asked the author if he would really continue to do that. Godson General likes alcohol, and Godmoon General likes meat. Il Xinjiang told him to prepare food for them, and if it was not to their liking, he would be forced to take the test. He respectfully told the generals that he was sure that they would like them. He knew that nobody hates fried chicken and beer, that even the author agrees with him too. Then he asked the generals to rest and relax for a while, to which Il Xinjiang happily agreed, and told him that they would look forward to it. He opened his fridge, knowing that it would come out of the fridge, but was surprised to see that there was no alcohol. But there was liquor of life and death, and liquor of necromancy. Life and death liquor that revives the dead. The condition for using the liquor of life and death no later than 1 day after the act of death, as a healing potion when used in small quantities, and when consumed by a healthy person, it increases inner energy. With liquor necromancy training for 60 years, which allows them to control ghosts. The feature of liquor necromancy is when they finish the bottle, they will be able to command ghosts when they get spirit-controlling body. They will always have ghosts on their side, and get the ability to see them, and when used as part of a temporary commandment, gains over the power of spirits. He asked author why it had appeared out of nowhere, and he replied that they would all be useful. The author tells him that first he has to take the liquor of life and death because they have to come out to his surprise. Il Xinjiang overhears it, and asks if it will take longer. Lee Hwan closed the fridge door in shock as he answered no at all and guessed that he needed food delivered. Lee Hwan looked at his phone wishing he had money, and said he received his salary in his account because of his part-time job. The system told him that Lee Hwan's past before he became a martial artist had been added. He also said before becoming a martial artist, he worked various jobs from government offices to convenience stores and internet cafes. But when he saw his transaction records recently, he was surprised to see that his remaining balance was minus 120,000 won. The system tells him that his money has been taken by Kwon Sang-hoo and his gang. Then he remembers that bastard at the beginning of the chapter and wonders how much he robbed him. Suddenly he received a lot of messages making him wonder what was up with the sudden texts. Then he saw that it was because of the urgent news from the Security Bureau informing people that the parallel world's dAnime Piano Academy had been removed by lifting the control of the section. He was about to click on one of the messages, but he stopped thinking that there was a chance the author would make another useless character story again, and he knew that he couldn't do that and shouldn't add more. There he thinks that he should exclude family stories just in case, and says that he doesn't even have a family, and the only reason he is getting all the attention must be because the system announcement showed him that Lee Hwan died before he became a martial artist, which was added, and that Lee Wen grew up in an orphanage. He was surprised to read it and must have known that he never checked until the main character was all sorted out. But he was more surprised to see and asked, when did the fried chicken he previously ordered get so expensive? But the author just told him they had to go, so he had to pack things up their stuff because there's a place they need it. Meanwhile, in South Korea Bureau Security Office, news is telling people that parallel world behind Darren's Piano Academy was totally destroyed some time ago, and the owner is identified as Lord Savage. On the other hand, the main character behind the annihilation is known as Lee Hwan, and the only information given about him is his photo, and his name and affiliation education will be soon. But before the news is over, someone shuts down the television. A man in the middle of the meeting said that it was a bit of a letdown, and would love for them to have their new star Lee Hwan at the briefing along with the Security Bureau, even though he was certain that the other organizations would not stand idly by, as he is a first-rate martial artist who appeared out of nowhere. Then he also told Shin that they had technically contacted him first, but recruiting him was nothing more than a failure, and asked if he thought he could take him to the Security Bureau. The man also said there wasn't much information out there, so he believed it was to their advantage, and he could be contacted at any time as directed. He then told Shin to wait for his instructions, to which he agreed, and said he would do his best, but he knew that they did not have an easy relationship. Still, he thought it wasn't adversarial either, so it was worth a try. While in Jinil Hospital, it is a parallel world in one of the black market run by Turg, the war minister of the Golden Coil Nation. Lee Hwan looked at the entrance, wondering if it was true that if he didn't have any money he could make it there. So he decided to go find some money for the fried chicken he wanted to order for the two generals earlier. He went inside and saw a map of high-tech machines and many things the system had said to him, that apart from the black market, there were also many entertainment facilities for competent people, and one of them was called the Demon Pellet. It was a pellet made with demon's heart that was commonly used today among competent people. One shot equals $1,000. Lee Hwan saw the place and was amazed because it looked like an abandoned hospital from the outside, but was completely fine inside. He also said that was the reason why he found parallel worlds interesting. Suddenly, someone asked him if it was his first time there, making him look to his side and saw a security guard. The system informed him that security guards could be found on every floor in the Jeonil hospital. The guard asked if he could check his ID, which he immediately gave. The guard scanned his ID and it was clear, so the requested access was granted. He walked up the stairs, deciding that after selling the things he got from dAnime Academy, he should go check out the black market. He saw stains everywhere, and the system told him they were black organisms and plastered all over the inside walls of the Jeonil hospital. And originally it was a satanic mushroom that spreads a powerful neurotoxin. He continued walking up the stairs, amazed that author even added such a small detail, and thought there really wasn't a gap in author's settings. He arrived at the top of the stairs, wondering if that was the place, and saw a lot of people there, leading him to say that no one was on the street. Guess they were all here. And he saw the different classes such as magicians, elves, and martial artists. He also notices that the sellers are promoting their business and the buyers are buying, looking around, and excited him even more, saying that the place is really a black market, and who would have thought it was placed inside a hospital. Suddenly he heard loud footsteps nearby and was amazed to see the orc warrior. He knew that there were a lot of arrangements made by the author, but the author really gave him a lot to look at. One of the people noticed him, The man told his friend that he was the one who raided dAnime's piano and the current #1 person on the internet search list. Hearing that, he seemed happy. But then he also heard from the girl saying that she was just lucky to be able to finish it. He looked back to see the people talking about it, and they stopped. Soon after, the author appeared, telling him that since they were there with the goblins, they had to use it. The wine was hard to carry around because it was liquid, so they had to ask them to make a resurrection device using the Golden Thread Empire's technology. The author tells him that it's obvious that the fellow goblins he's seen won't be able to build anything great, so all they need to talk to is the building's owner. He replied that he guessed it wouldn't be that bad to be acquainted with the big character for the story, and asked the author how he had met the owner of the building, but the author disappeared, making the little goblin ask him what he said. Author was gone, but he gave him a hint, and he had an idea. Then he asked the little goblin what if he would only take 10 shots as payment, and he would get the rest some other way. But the goblin turned around and told him that if he was going to make a commission, he had come to the wrong shop and told him to go to the 5th floor. Lee Hwan mentions the Secretary of War Torsion and asks if he really won't listen to his request, making the goblin look back at him. Knowing that he has the goblin's attention, he says that if you didn't know, but the Secretary Torque has even been looking for his missing brother since the dimensional collision, and he knows where he is. He also says that he knows he'll be in big trouble if he lies, but instead if he tells the truth, and he asks the goblin if he doesn't think the Secretary will give him credit for helping him reunite with his brother. To make connection with Turgan's secretary, he made a life-and-death Vine Awakening device with gold thread royal technology. The goblin said the stakes were too high, and it was far higher than his own life's worth, but he wouldn't be a goblin if he didn't accept the offer now, and he nodded in agreement. The goblin tells him that even if it cost him his life, he must accept the offer, and the bigger the stake, the more reason he has to accept. The system informed him that the character, Shigol, who's the small goblin, had been upgraded to extra from a supporting role. The records showed him that the goblin Chigal made up his mind that no one could have expected that a small black market merchant would eventually become a great merchant of little influence in the larger world. Chigal, the great war merchant and great legend, has just started. Also, Chapter 4 is 100% complete. Reading it, he was stunned in horror, because it sounded like a foreshadowing of someone's death, like a cursed sentence. Chigal tells him he is leaving, and he better hope he comes back, and if he doesn't, then it will be his turn. He waves goodbye to Mr. Legend. A few hours later, most of the shops were closed, and he was sitting on the ground playing rock, paper, scissors himself, wondering how long it would take for their legends to return. Suddenly, someone walked towards him, and the man asked him if he was Lee Hwan, the dAnime piano. He looks flustered, and stands up to confront the man, angrily asking the author who it is this time, but the author is very excited and tells him there is a really cool arena there, so it would be a shame if they didn't use it, surprising him. He thought that it would not be a good idea if the sole purpose of writing a new page was just to show the arena and nothing more than that. He wondered what he should do. Then she noticed that the man looked so full of himself that he reminded her of someone. Then she looked at the man, and the man asked if she knew him. He replies that he knows and tells him that he is Jang Yong of the Blood Clan. The system shows him that in the future Jang Yong will be the leader of the Blood Clan, the evil Loach, and Zhang tells him that he has quite a reputation around there. Although Jang Yong is still young, he still has some top features, and Lee Hwan can remember the cunning of his opponent, which earned the evil Loach his name. And earlier, when retreating, he lost his dearest followers to the Blood Clan, so to punish them for what they have done, he seeks Blood Clan. And after a terrible battle, he succeeded in killing the evil Loach of the Blood Clan. It was an arrangement he made in a place he would be proud of. Jang Yong tells him that he is really lucky, and asks if it is true that the boss of dAnime Piano Academy is Baron. Jang Yong also tells him that they have touted it as a new beginning that came out of nowhere, but he can't really believe it until he saw it with his own eyes. He looks at Jang Yong, knowing that the arrangement he made is still not enough reason to go against him, so he needs something more. Then he looks at the sword hanging on Jang Yong's belt. He smiles and walks up to Jang, telling him he recently heard rumors that a promising great disciple of the Blood Clan stole the clan's secret weapon and ran away. He knocked on his sword and asked if it was Blood Clan Ancient Dragon Sword's secret weapon, making him furious. The treasure of the Ancient Dragon Sword was the treasured sword of the Blood Clan that would even allow someone who wasn't a first-rate martial artist to create a key sword. And there was a martial arts technique exclusive to the Blood Clan solely for the Ancient Dragon Sword as well. If an expert uses it, a long and unique key intent occurs, and the blade is able to flex and bend like a sword or a whip depending on the blow. Before Lee Hwan retreated, it was also the primary weapon of one of the people who killed him. He was the king's death sword in the past. Lee Hwan knocked on death's door several times because the sword of death impressed the king of the feast. He is surprised to find out and asks if that means some people killed Lee Hwan, but author just tells him they will talk about it later. Zhang tells him he has sharp eyes and asks if he is really a newbie. He replies that he doesn't seem to believe in his skills and asks why they don't risk everything they have and have the winner take all the fight. Zhang Yong grips his sword tightly, asking if he really thinks he can beat him, and if not, fear who he is. Zhang also tells him that other than that he gained nothing from fighting him other than some demon pellets. But she tells him that she has a devil's essence, confusing him. He shows the devil's essence to Zhang while telling him that he thinks he'd be interested in the little thing. He couldn't believe he got a demonic essence on his first parallel world attack while someone was walking around risking their life, but someone else was taking all the items out of pure luck. He replied that they would see if it was pure luck or not, planning to get rid of the evil Loach, who would become the Blood Clan leader and wield his enemy, the precious treasure of the king's death sword. Lee Hwan calls it his attempt at killing two birds with one stone, and asks Zhang whether he is in or not. She laughs, telling him how beautifully presented he is, and he thanks her for bidding and asks if they will start the winner-takes-all battle later in the arena. The system explains that the arena plays a big role in Jeonil Hospital. Growing black market fighters go one-on-one in a large cage surrounded by multiple layers of protection magic, and spectators place their bets on who they believe will win. Also, participants can choose whatever weapon they want from the gun stand, but be wary of quality weapons would be wise. While he is looking for the weapon, Chagall asks him what he has done if he is angry, and why he started the match. Chagall also asks him if he really doesn't know who the Blood Clan is, and tells him that a match against a great disciple of the Blood Clan is dangerous. Lee Hwan replies that he's lucky, and that if he defeats Zhang, people's doubts about him will be dispelled, leading Chagall to ask him what he said. He replies that people still can't believe it was him who managed to resolve the situation at Piano Darum, leaving Chagall speechless. A moment later, Chagall asks if he is for real, but he only asks back what the boss said. Cheagle replies that he was just told to wait until further notice and they might dig into his background. He thought maybe it was an opportunity, and he could use the battle to make himself known to the public more. But first he asks Chagall if he can give him 10 shots, but Cheagle tells him that he doesn't owe him anything. She asks if he forgot to pay her, and Chagall asks back if he is sure she is the raider of Piano Darum, but he just tells her he will know when he sees her matches. He put the sword he had on the table, told the dealer that he would take it, and also he wanted to change the value to master it. Then the announcer informs the audience that their next match will start soon, while the system explains that in the arena one can bet based on the information provided by the participant. Whether the information provided is true or false is up to you, which is better to find out, and winner takes all matches, no matter what happens. The winner of the game will take all that belongs to the loser. The screen shows his face and Yang's face, and the announcer tells the audience that because of the participants' request, Lee Hwan's score has been changed to master, making the audience shocked and call him Dutch courage, and more because they can't believe he's smiling confidently and doesn't care about the words of the audience. Then the system showed World Setting Master Muram level was the level of martial prowess where one could materialize Kai and energy armor, usually elders from prestigious major families the successor or clan leader was at. Below that level, he tells Chagall that the odds are 9-1 and asks if he can't put more money for him, but Chagall replies that it is not wise to bet everything in one game, and he will not press his luck and fail miserably. He pouts with annoyed and tells Chagall not to say he didn't warn him. He walks towards the stage, telling Chagall he will be back. When they both are on stage, the announcer informs the audience that their next match will be the main match of the day. Then introduced Zhang Yong as a great student of Blood Clan, and Lee Hwan was the main star who invaded the parallel world of Darum Piano Academy. While looking at his opponent, he notices that Zhang thinks that the match will be an easy win for him, and wonders if Zhang will not use the ancient dragon sword. Suddenly, someone in the audience screamed to let him know that he bet on him, leaving him shocked, and the other people cheering for him, also making him wonder why his heart was beating so fast if he was stuck in the atmosphere, and what feelings he was feeling right now. Showing him that jolt of pleasure rippled through Lee Hwan's chest at the sight of the death sword. The king's precious weapon. The ancient dragon sword Zhang Yang that wasn't the evil Loach just stood there and willingly presented the sword to him, so there was no reason for him not to be excited. Moreover, just the thought of the Sword King of Death without the almighty ancient dragon sword was more than enough to make young Zhang beam with joy. He agreed with the note he just read, and said he couldn't help but feel happy in the situation. The announcer starts the match. Zhang arrogantly says that he will see soon if he is a master. Then Lee Hwan releases his ki. The audience is shocked to see him, and hears the announcer tell them it is the embodiment of ki without hesitation. Zhang steps back and is shocked and asks if it really is materialization of ki. But he only replied that he still had more surprises on his sleeves. Before he set foot on the arena, he used one of the Grand 12 Heavenly Demon pressure point techniques on his body. It was wrath that converted ki energy into energy of another nature, and transformed the ki energy accumulated by the Heavenly Demon Lotus breathing technique into cultivation technique energy that do not change. Zhang is surprised, and he steps back telling him to hold on and says something is not right. There he tells Zhang to pay close attention, then uses the 7-strike sword which does not change. The technique consists of a total of 7 techniques and gets stronger, as each technique is used sequentially. If one did not have sufficient skill in martial arts, there was the fatal disadvantage of having to see the technique to the end of the chain, and one could not stop in the middle or use another technique as long as it was active. He jumps at him and stabs him using first strike White Force sword. Unfortunately, it hits Zhang's armor. He gets thrown off and crashes into the arena railing. He falls to the ground and looks at his chest and thinks that it's not because of the artifact he is wearing. He will be in big trouble when lunch at him. Then uses his second soul-drifting attack to attack Zhang. Unfortunately, the attack misses, but still catches Zhang by surprise. He shakily grabs his sword on the ground, realizing that when the bastard doesn't do it, it doesn't look like he's going to stop anytime soon, so he needs to do something. He readied his sword to strike again. Zhang immediately readied his sword to block it. He wanted to get out of there alive. Then he swung forward and attacked Zhang using his third strike. The long slash broke Zhang's sword to pieces and hit him slightly. He fearfully looked at Lee Hwan's confident face. He knelt on the ground, wondering if he would die. He clenched his fists in anger and thought he would not die a meaningless death somewhere. Like knowing that he still has the ancient dragon sword, he thinks if he uses their ancient dragon sword, he will announce himself as the thief of the sword. But he knew he had no other choice, and he would think about the consequences afterwards. Right now he just felt that he had to get out of there alive. Lee Hwan tells him that he will finish him now. Then Zhang stands up and starts running. While running, he used the Blood Moon sect skill, Violent Whirlwind. He knew that he would not be able to survive when stuck inside the Violent Whirlwind for a long time. But that would be enough for him to take back the ancient dragon sword. He confidently thought that even if Lee Hwan was a master, he was no match for the Blood Clan treasure of the ancient dragon sword. When it was stepped on the ground hard, it made the Violent Whirlwind slowly disappear. Zhang was surprised and stopped to look at it, wondering how he managed to destroy it so fast. He couldn't believe it, but his doubts faded as he was surprised to see Lee Hwan hurtling towards him. And before Zhang could react, he was hit by the 4th strike White Wrath sword. Zhang knelt to the ground lifeless and fainted, causing the announcer to announce that the fight was over and Lee Hwan's victor. Chagall can believe that he has actually won, but the audience cheers for Lee Hwan, while the announcer tells everyone that after decade hosted a battle like that, it must have been a long time since he saw a skill like that. But the announcer stopped everyone because he noticed while swinging his sword in the air, he used a 5th strike that split the sky in the air while thinking about the technique he needed. As soon as he started was a 7-strike sword technique that didn't change his sword, slowly broke and exploded from the force. But he still jumped while swinging his broken sword in the air while using 6 strikes which blinded and made the audience shocked, as they couldn't believe that it was a technique created by the Reaper unchanged. Legendary martial artist Chigall asks if Hwan inherited the legendary martial arts technique. The system showed training of the 7-strike sword technique unchanged from Lee Hwan's past before the regression. Lee Hwan was unable to succeed in learning the Heavenly Demon Fist technique. At the time, Lee Hwan was also practicing the Heavenly Demon Sword technique in an attempt to overcome the wall holding him back. However, it didn't help him exhale, while the system indicated to him that while in such a state, he encountered an unchanged 7-strike sword technique that had been wandering the path. The black market, and the reason why Lee Hwan paid attention to the unchanging 7-strike sword technique, was the 7 techniques. Then he swung his broken sword using the 7th, dealt a final blow towards the cage fence. The system showed him that first of all, 1 Yang Qi, unique life force, which was described as being similar to the flaming heavens, and that was due to its familiar form being similar to the heavenly demon's divine arts. His powerful strike slammed into the cage fence and burst into the outside. The host told everyone not to worry, and that he could not believe what he was seeing with his own eyes. One of the walls of the cage with 6 layers of enhanced magic had just been destroyed by one attack. The host pointed at him on the screen, praising him and telling the stunned audience that what participant Lee Hwan said was true. He is a master. After that, his eyes turned back to normal, and was surprised to hear the host announce that it was the moment of truth, where they witness the birth of a new star, and the winner of the game is their new star master, Lee Hwan. Saw broken ground in front of him, the host told him everything was amazing, and asked him if he wanted to give a speech to the audience. He took the microphone and told everyone he wished everyone could see that he was Raider of the dAnime piano, and if they still can't believe, then he'll give them a chance to challenge him now. So come out and fight him fair and square. The host says it's a bold claim, while security removes Jong from the stage behind them. The host tells everyone that if there is no one, then it ends the game. Then the host thanked Lee Hwan for showing the art of a master on their stage, and they especially would reward him with 200 shots as the winner, and asked everyone to give him a round of applause to the new star. A moment later, a note appeared saying that the arena was filled with the sounds of cheering people, and everyone looked at Lee Hwan with focus. When they can't see what Lee Hwan got, then the system shows that Chapter 5 is 100% complete. Meanwhile, in front of Chigol's gun shop, there are many people there looking for him. While looking at the shot, wondering how much fried chicken he could buy with it, and thinking it should be enough to satisfy the Sun and Moon Divine General, also had an ancient dragon sword on it. She teasingly tells Chigal that it must disappoint her, and he tells her to bet on him. Chigal sullenly asks him how he got to know about it, and asks him what he was looking for all along. He replies artifacts, and asks if he has any good stuff there, because he thinks those artifacts are what helped Zhang Yong survive long enough, so he doesn't mind the price given. Chigal slams the table, asking if he doesn't have a single artifact with him, and thinks he was looking for one just now. Then he changes his voice, telling him that he has a wise choice. Chigal also tells him that he will become very famous, so of course he will need it, but ask him if he knows that artifacts are expensive. He replies he knows, and tells him only to find something useful for him. Chigal tells him to leave everything to him. After that, a collector who can also be called a manager appears, and Lee Hwan welcomes the manager. The manager told him they looked forward to working with him in the future, so he should feel free to call him manager. Looking at the manager, he wonders if he's just a literal copy of manager Chigal. The manager's real name is Rogel. His race is Goblin, and hospital administration manager Jonil, one of Secretary of War Turg's many subordinates. Rogel apologizes to him for the time they took to meet him, and he replies not to mention it, as he also has to follow the system. He tells Rogel that meanwhile he has received a lot of help from Chigal, and Chigal has helped him even though it's quite a dangerous matter. So if all goes well, he tells Rogel to give Chigal some credit. Chigal knocks on him asking how something should be accredited to him, and tells the manager that it's natural as he is always indebted to the manager, making him wonder if Chigal is trying to give all the credit to the manager. Chigal immediately ran behind, telling them he would pretend that he didn't hear or see anything. The ramblings told him not to worry, and he knew the world accused them of goblins, but it was his belief that no other race returned the favor as sincerely as he did. They do. Then Rogel loosens his tie, telling him they should get down to business, and seriously asks where he is now. Seeing Rogel's changed expression made him feel scared, and think a story was made up of meeting the war secretary of the Golden Spring Empire Turg. Even though he meddled in the arena, it all went according to plan. Rogel tells him that if he had been with her, they would have tried to sort things out without complicating it, but he replies that it wasn't like that, and asks Rogel if he didn't, he would have asked him how he knew. Rogel replies that His Majesty has only one wish, and if only he could find out where his brother is, everything would be ignored. He notices that the determination number of nations they have is unbelievable, and pulls himself together knowing that he is the Secretary of War. He apologizes, but tells Rogel that the Secretary's brother is already on his side, making Rogel surprised and asks him what he meant, he said. Rogel angrily tells him that they have searched everywhere closely, and now he is telling him that she is by his side. Lee Hwan then tells him that they won't forgive him if it's just bullshit, making him realize that it's a shadow, and asks Rogel if he knows why the Dark Wizard is evil. Lee Hwan explained that the source of their strength comes from grief, pain, and death, And they are no different from evil demons. He didn't know which evil dark wizard started taking advantage of him, but what he could tell her now was that it was all part of a sinister plot to overthrow the Golden Spring Empire by targeting the Secretary of War. Lee Hwan asks Rogel if he didn't notice that the secretary had changed while searching for his brother for so long, and explained that that's where their powerful curse came from. From the first curse is sorrow. The secretary's sorrow at the loss of a beloved sibling and the secretary's soul growing in sorrow as time goes by. The second curse is pain. How his younger brother felt trapped for tens of years and saw his older brother go crazy because of him. Rogel is surprised to hear that and asks where exactly. And what does he mean by being trapped? Lee Hwan replied that it was probably somewhere inside something that the secretary always carried with him, and he didn't know where or what exactly. But it was one of the things he always carried with him. He also tells Rogel that they must maximize the power of their curse by continuing to accumulate the pain and misery of the two over the decade. Finally, the third curse is death. He explains that the younger brother's soul will be ripped apart, and the curse will be cast on the secretary as complete shackles, not only to the body, but also to the soul, and some evil dark wizard will end up possessing the secretary. Rogel asks what they gain from doing so, and even if they get a secretary. But Lee Hwan cuts him off saying they will get secretarial powers. He explained that with power accumulated in the Golden Spring Kingdom for a long time, even a coup would be possible. And just like that, they would try to seize the Golden Spring Kingdom themselves. The author was amazed, and told him that it was amazing. The story was crazy, and it was a good idea to get him there, but for him it was nothing, while Rogel was freaking out beside him. Meanwhile, in his apartment, Il Xinjiang is sleeping soundly, and Wu Xinjiang is tired of waiting. Wu Xinjiang stands up and screams that it won't make Il Xinjiang wake up, and asks why Wu Xinjiang told Il Xinjiang that when the bastard must have run away, it was because he didn't want to take the test that they had to pick him up. But Il Xinjiang just turns around telling him that Lee Hwan might come over and tells him to go back to sleep. It was at that moment that Lee Hwan came back, leaving the Divine General speechless. Then he offered fried chicken and beer to the Divine General. Il Xinjiang is happy to say it is very good and tasty, whereas Wu Xinjiang is secretly in love with the chicken he eats. Il Xinjiang said it was delicious and asked what it was called. Lee Hwan replied that it was fried chicken and beer. Together called chicken and beer, Il Xinjiang told him to try it and help himself too. Then asks why she doesn't eat it when she has gone through all the trouble to buy it. Then he remembers Rogel telling him that he will forward it to the general and he will contact him soon. With a feeling of suspicion about unfinished business, and thought maybe he should have asked her when she would get back to him. He told the divine generals that they would be returning to heaven soon, so they should eat well before they left, and just taking a look was enough for him. Il Xinjiang asks if he plans to close the door and if he wants them to return earlier. Wu Xinjiang tells him that they have a lot of work to do when they return. He replies that he is afraid the sacred text of the heavenly demon martial arts will reveal to the outside world that the two of them are not present. But Il Xinjiang just laughs and asks, "Who would dare do that when they are guarding him?" Il Xinjiang puts down the beer and asks if they can stay there for a while, stupefying him in confusion. For a moment he asked them if perhaps there was still a test left, and wondered if it was a newly created barrier. Il Xinjiang replied that there was no war test, and told him what the test was when the successor had appeared right in front of them. He said if that was the case, honestly, he would feel more comfortable closing the place down. Lee Hwan then asked them if the two were done with the job those the divine generals approved of. He smiled and told them that turning a blind eye to the plight of two divine generals didn't seem like something commendable to do as a junior. Even more so when he thought of the times when they too were waiting for a heavenly devil successor to appear. Il Xinjiang appreciatively tells him that his only understanding is about them, and Wu Xinjiang tells him that he has a bigger heart than he looks. It looks like the generals are enjoying their stay there. He will give them fried chicken and beer and food to watch and fun in return, along with one condition, and let them know she has something to tell them about him. Il Xinjiang and Wu Xinjiang are confused and ask what it is, and he replies that he was actually killed before he regressed. The story begins in Gangxio province in the Merm Federation. The leader gathers over 10,000 warriors to fight against the mysterious power. His speech is greeted with the glint of prey and cheers from the crowd below. He emphasizes the importance of each raising the 3 flags, with different functions based on the color. Then, the blue flag, actually coated with poison, that flag indicates an area where second-rank soldiers can enter. And furthermore, the green flag, meaning officers below the first rank, may not approach the area until they are rounded up. And finally, the red flag. It indicates detoxification is not possible. The leaders stressed that soldiers should put up warning flags, even if they were attacked to the end. Right when they finished, suddenly a red flag appears, out of nowhere. The flag was planted right where the leader was standing. Then, because it caused everyone to feel scared, after asking if everything was all right, a man who poisoned a dragon appeared. He greeted the people from the Pure Federation and taunted them, later confirming that anyone who intends to kill him will die. The venom dragon, also known as Jinjae Jagang, is said to be the greatest annihilator the world has ever seen. Then, one night, an unexpected incident occurred. A child was seen sleeping with his mother, Jagang. That's the name of the child who was sleeping with his mother. Then, while he was sleeping, he suddenly smelt something strange, and he tried to wake his mother up to see what was going on. But when he tried to wake her up, Jagang saw that she looked like she had been poisoned, that she was foaming at the mouth. And then she died, because of the poisoning of the red centipede. Suddenly the red centipede crawled out of its dead mother's collar. The red centipede is the most poisonous centipede of all centipedes, and after biting its mother, the beast that saw it made him feel angry and sad because his mother is dead. Then Jagang saw the centipede. He immediately bit the centipede with his teeth, but it even made him faint. Then his grandfather came, and it seemed like it was too late. But he managed to give a fireball to Jagang to detoxify his poison. It looks like the ball given by his grandfather was drug. And then outside the house, it was seen that the members of the poison sect were waiting, and led by their leader, the Mangrio, who saw that, immediately scolded him. This all happened because your stubbornness of not listening to me earlier caused your family to die. Later, Jagang's grandfather did everything in his power to save his grandson. Mangrio was surprised to see that Jagang was still alive, and even more shocked when he saw Jagang had taken a red centipede shell and thrust it into his Mangrio's leg. The poison quickly spread to Mangrio's leg, and he had to cut it open, his leg to save his life. Then, amidst the chaos, his grandfather took him to a cave to protect him. He heard that eating the red centipede's owner's poison pouch can neutralize poison, and he vowed to protect Jagang, even if it cost him his own life. Later, the poison sect finally found their hideout, and while Jagang's grandfather died from an attack from the Mangrio, Jagang survived. Instead of killing to avenge his crippled left leg, the Mangrio used him as a test tool to test the various toxic substances it synthesizes. The Mangrio would continue his experiments by giving potions and testing various poisons and potions on him. He was documenting the results of each potion experiment. The Jagang, who was losing consciousness, made him experience every effect of the poison while the Mangrio was fully awake. And then, while waiting for Jagang to recover from this poisoning incident, Mangrio received a call from the Murum Federation. After he left, Jagang woke up. When Mangrio came back, he smelled poison. Before even reaching the gate, when he opened the door, he was shocked to find that the poison beast had run away. Jagang was nowhere to be found. He frantically searched everywhere, unable to believe that he could lose such a valuable tool. He noticed that the garbage chute door was open, so he thought that Jagang might be hiding inside, however. When he opened the door, bamboo leaves coated with poison flew into his face, causing him to quickly search for an antidote. Unfortunately, he had no idea what kind of poison to use. Jagang has been hiding in a basket of venomous snakes the whole time, and he has built up an immunity to the poison Jagang uses to drain venom from his blood, so no antidote can save the Mangrio. Later, when Jagang was running away from home, he overheard a member of the poison sect talking about someone who reported the poison school to the Murum Federation. And then, they mentioned that General Li Zhang personally visited them to investigate something. Khan came up with an idea to inform the Murum Federation about the injustice that the White Flower sect was suffering from. So Jagang sneaked into the Federation and tried to find the Murum Federation leader. While leaving their conversation, he heard the leader and an old man discussing the death of someone from the Wang family who was killed by Jagang. The poison school was about to report the injustice suffered by the White Flower sect. But then he heard the old man say that suppressing the medical school was difficult, and one of them had run away. Jagang realized that the Murum Federation had not condemned the poison school's evil, but rather helped them. much to his shock and disappointment for putting his trust in the wrong place. The next day, the old man arranged his celebration for the poison school, during which side he received the secret report and had to leave. Believing hearing news from his underlings, it turned out that Mangrio, who had studied poisons for tens of years, was found unconscious as a result of poisoning. If this was revealed, it would be a problem for them. Then Kang is from behind the bushes, as the remaining medical school members are escorted to an underground tunnel maintained by poison sacks. They were tortured and beaten for falling behind and moving slowly when the deputy head of the medical school took down the thugs. They were ordered to refrain from taking advantage of the moment for Jagang to infiltrate the escorted group. Jagang secretly introduced himself to the others as a member of the White Flower sect and told them the story of how it was used as an experimental tool for poison by the people of the poison sect. And he had planned to take down the 5 guards on his way to help the people in the wagon escape. But the man who had spoken to him earlier warned him that because the guards were skilled with swords and could kill them at any time, Jagang revealed his own blood to be a deadly poison, because thanks to Mangrio's cruel experiment. The medicine sect was against this plan, as they were afraid that if Jagang failed, they would all die as they argued with the emissary. On horseback arrives and informs them that the headmaster has ordered the cart to stop and return to the sect. The reason for the order to stop is because the Mangrio fainted and one of the captives escaped. Today 11 people from the medical school were being hauled down the tunnels, but the head guard Dado counted 12, revealing that the escaped captives had been there the whole time. He was using his sword and threatening to kill all, to avoid having to continue into the tunnels. One of the captives out of fear of being accused, Jagang as a way to avoid being killed however things don't go as planned, and Dado kills the accuser, shocking the others. They criticize him for treating human life as if it were nothing, countering that they will meet the same fate when he finishes speaking. Then 11 captives jumped out of the wagon, each holding a piece of porcelain to attack the guards all. Though the ordinary-looking porcelain caused those who touched it to vomit blood, after being cut, this made Dado realize that they were poisoned, and use his sword in the normal way. Using a sword to finish off one man among them, he is about to kill the next captive, when Jagang, who is silently holding a piece of china, appears behind him. Jagang uses the porcelain to strike Dado in the neck, when his attention is diverted, but it is not. It didn't work because Dado had fast reflexes and easily dodged the surprise attack. He immediately turned around and used his sword to stab his stomach. Then weakly refused, thinking that if he failed everyone would die. He held his sword. Dado laughed and as usual licked his sword. After killing someone, he effortlessly killed everyone in the medical school, leaving only the vice chief. To Khan, what he didn't expect was that Jagang, although weak, could stand up and count to 10. At first he didn't understand, but after those 10 seconds he suddenly bled. He was poisoned, but he wasn't slashed in the back. As it turned out earlier, Jagang had noticed Dado's habit of licking his sword, so he poisoned his blade when Dado wasn't paying attention. Dado begged Jagang for an antidote. Dan promised to help him to enter the sect in return, but of course his words were in vain because the vice had killed him immediately. The deputy had stopped, while bleeding for Taken and 2 people got on horseback and fled from the scene. Jagang felt guilty for causing everyone's death people, but the deputy has comforted and motivated him to revenge. After saying those words, he had lost a prisoner because the boss was there too. After hearing that the boss was killed, he became disheartened and afraid that the Honorable Lord would find out about it. However, life is unpredictable and the Honorable Lord heard everything. The commander begged the Lord for one last chance to prove their abilities, and Master agrees, but also warns that if they fail this time, the poison school will have no future. He runs to the Chief Mong's place where he is very sick and lies down on the bed, looking very sad when he hears that Jagang has run away himself from the poison he could not help. But screaming loudly, he muttered something to the commander, and after a few weeks passed, Jagang had recovered very quickly from his wounds. He felt that now was the time to move. He went to the capital to hear the situation and find a job to make a living. He was surprised to hear that the people from the White Flower sect had been captured and sent to the mines and worked as slaves. Upon hearing this, he immediately ran away, knowing that only he could save them. Now in the tunnel at Namoa, the The commander is very worried because Jagang hasn't appeared yet. Even though he has followed Chief Meng's advice to use the White Flower Sect's people as bait, Chief Main is even more excited than anyone. He is the one who wants to tear Jake into pieces, the one who had taken his legs and even his eyes, caused him the most pain. Arrived at the tunnel where he saw some familiar people from the White Flower Sect. But there were more guards than he expected. And he couldn't handle them alone, so he lit a big fire in the storage room to distract them. This allowed him to sneak into the tunnel and reunite with the White Flower Sect. We were happy to see him alive. Jagang proposes to help them escape, using a poison substance he has while at Chief Meng's place. He realizes that the fire was not accidental, and suspecting that Jaken is hiding in the tunnels, he goes there and finds Jagang discussing an escape plan with the White Flower Sect Mangryo, who do not do it. Not wanting to hurt Jagang against Wei Zhong's proposal to kill them all in the tunnel, the guards panicked and warned that the tunnel would be destroyed. They instructed the White Flower Sect to remain calm and stay in place, which the higher representative wanted. The magnetic head rushed to block tunnel entrance due to landslide. Then he shouted in front of frustration, because that wasn't what he wanted. He wanted the butcher to die by his hands. While the members of the White Flower Sect were discussing the importance of the tunnel for the school's poison. Since it was there they mined their poison. They suspected that the landslide was caused by someone from Poison School. Then digging their way out was difficult, and they didn't have enough food or torches. Slowly, they grew tired. Their efforts to dig every day were in vain, as the tunnel kept collapsing on them. Despite this, Jagang endured, never giving up. His determination impressed Elder Gong from the mighty Yellow Sect, who wanted to pass down their teachings to Jagang. From a different sect also wanted to pass on their teachings to him. Jagang readily accepted all these teachings, as his mission in life was to avenge those who died for him. Day after day, Jagang studied the art of integration and the art of creation. He tirelessly absorbed hidden martial arts techniques from many sects, showing his extraordinary ability to learn finely. The moment came when Grandpa Gong breathed his last, and everyone including Jagang was crying outside. It had been 2 weeks. Since the tunnel collapses and Mangryo slowly loses his mind, he turns to drinking, hoping that one day Jagang will find his way out. Time flies by, and one by one the people in the tunnel die from starvation. Jagang was the last survivor living above the grass and poisoned water in the tunnel. Despite the hardships and solitude, he spent his time training and digging caves. Many years passed, and it was already his 8th year in the tunnel. During a clear moonlit night, a child who was once on the brink of childhood returns as a fierce soldier. This time the commander, a white-haired man, led his army to kill, rob, and plunder other sects. His ultimate goal was to get their secret teachings. After taking something that contained the secret of this martial art, he killed all the survivors to silence them. He drank heavily and thought about the curse of the people he had killed that day. He wanted to absorb and make all the secret martial arts teachings of the smaller sect his own. The next morning he woke up to find his body covered in red ash. When he called out as boy, he was surprised to see that all his mouth guards were foaming from being poisoned. The rest had the same symptoms, including glistening face and red pimples. These were symptoms of cinnabar poison, not effects of liquor. Lower ranks reported that this was poison taken from tunnels, and there are very few antidotes available. But who can do this other than the main character? Who else can enter? He is in the forest, boiling a large pot of water with firewood smoke rising from it. And behind him you can see eyes sparkling with anger of revenge. After taking medicine, the commander-in-chief and his men go looking for the culprit. They ran towards the forest where the smoke was coming from. Jagog appeared after the smoke cleared, and when asked why he did it, what did he do, he only replied with one word: revenge. The commander finds that entertaining Jagang, who is from medical school, would do something like this. He even jokes that Jagang is playing a trick on him by coming alone. Despite praising Jagang for setting fire to Cinnabar and targeting Poison School, the commander realizes that Jacob's fighting skills are very strong. Even when the group is attacked together, they can't beat it. The commander notices something odd about Jagang's swordsmanship and footwork, which suggests he is not an experienced fighter. Despite this, can't seem to beat him. Frustrated with their failure, the commander decides to fight Jacob himself. He believes he can handle it. but finds that his own fighting skills slow and clumsy. Turns out that his poison contains not only cinnabar, but also leafy green. Jagang is immune to poison, but the commander's body slowly needs poison. The commander tries to beg Jagang for the antidote, promising to help him get revenge in return. But Jagang refuses to give him the antidote, saying that he is immune to poison, and that he is the punishment for the poison school. Then Jagang arrived at the poison sect's territory and defeated all their lackeys alone. In Jagang's mind, he knew that just because the poison sect disappeared, it didn't mean everything was solved. They were just a frontman for a corrupt organization. He found many documents detailing the sect's activities, and found that the closure of the mine, many people in his sect died, decided by the approval of the three great sect poisons, Ian Ma. Meanwhile, the Mangrio is teaching poison in his class and receiving much praise from his students. Then after that, he was summoned by the Alliance and met the master of the Blue Dragon Longsword sect, Lee Jungbek, who was also an honorable lord, previously declaring that the poison sect had disappeared in one day. Lord expressed his wish for the Mangrio to investigate this incident, as the poison sect is still very important in the Merm Federation. But it seems that the Mangrio already knows that the mastermind behind all that is Jinja Khan, the person he mentioned to Tuan 8 years ago. But Tuan thinks there is no way a child who was buried in a mine 8 years ago could do this. This Mangrio wants to handle the investigation, and Overlord agrees to hand over the plaque to him, who holds the same authority, with the Alliance's main branch Mangrio investigator riding his horse to witness the devastation caused by the poison cult. While throwing a dart, suddenly hitting him, the three greatest sects of the poison school have gathered there, including the Iron Umbrella of the Dark Sect and the Poison Valley Sect Leader Sect. The Poison Valley haunts the Mangrio and accuses him of stealing all their money and running away. It is not clear if this is true, but the appearance of the Mangrio indicated that the Martial Alliance was paying attention to this incident. They hypothesized that the culprit was the opposing force created by General Lee. But if so, they should have attacked Lee. Instead, the Mangrio poison sect looked at the corpse and concluded that they were not directly attacked, but poisoned. The problem is how the poison was used. They examined the commander's body and the pot of poison that Jagang, Mangrio, had cooked with his knowledge. With a deep understanding of poisons quickly identifying the technique used by the culprit, he realized that only Jagang had dared to use cinnabar poison, and that he did it on purpose to leave his identity behind. Then, taking revenge, after Cotton for a while, the leaders of each sect went home. The Doe leader of the Iron Umbrella sect returned to his territory, and ordered his soldiers to prepare for the enemy to come. Suddenly a bag fell from above and exploded, emitting smoke poisonous, and killed all the leader's vision. The Doe army was a bit weak, but he immediately recognized the figure. After removing the poison sac, the culprit did not leave immediately. He plans to face them all, and is waiting for the right time. In the poison smoke, soldiers face many losses in the smoke battle. It not only blocks their vision, but also makes it hard for them to breathe. However, the culprit moves very quickly, and is used to fighting in the dark. The Doe leader lost the needle. As for Jakin, he believed Jagang was just a minor problem, and easily dealt with normally. If someone were hit by these broken needles, their bones would melt, and they would experience excruciating pain. But as the leader Doe approached, Jagang, who appeared to have fainted from the poison, suddenly stood up and attacked him, leaving the leader, Doe, shocked. Jagang even threw the needles returned to Doe's bottom, causing him to immediately follow the ground, rambling on, which he missed in fright, for Jagang still had plenty of needles in his hands. He told himself to try to dodge at all costs, but as soon as he finished thinking he couldn't move, and maybe accidentally inhaled poison, he had been hit by the needles. At that time, Jagang approached him and said that even though the needles had great power, they didn't work on him quickly. News of SEC Iron Umbrella being attacked reached Leader Yuk, leader of Poison Sect. He felt uneasy and instructed his soldiers to always keep watch from afar. Mangrio appeared and said he was there minding his own business, but his tone infuriated the Yuk leader so much. To make things worse, the Mangrio ordered everyone to die. Unable to take it anymore, and orders his underlings to attack, and in the life of the Mangrio to show him what respect is, then turns to carnage in an area filled with poison gas and iron umbrellas. The area of the sect analyzed by the mass assassin with skill, Jagang realized that his opponent could beat the Doe leader, who was considered the master. While thinking, he saw a blurry figure in the poison gas, and assuming it was his enemy, he rushed forward and attacked with his sword, only to find that he had attacked the dark sect leader instead of his actual enemy behind him, and used a dark sect skill to attack him again. The Mangrio and the poison sect in the blink of an eye. The Mangrio had defeated all his underlings without lifting a finger, and he laughed and said, that was the difference in their ranks. The leader of York believed that the Mangrio had been hiding his skills all along, waiting for the opportunity to return to the poison sect and take over. However, he misunderstood with Elder Mong. The only thing he cares about is the one person he wants to face all the free sects in one day. The words Mangrio reveal that he knows who the culprit is. That is, and leader Yuck wants to know the nature of the relationship between two people. According to Mangrio, Jakin is the reason he tries to overcome difficulties. After being kicked out of the poison sect and taking revenge on him. After their conversation, the Mangrio and leader York thought he had killed the old man with a mortal blow, but he quickly teleported behind the Yuck and snapped his neck and sent him to heaven. While Jagang is stabbed in the hand by the masked man's poison dart, whom he fights very arrogantly and thinks he will be harmed with his crippled left arm. But the situation changes when he himself becomes poisoned and starts hallucinating that he moves very fast and hits him with many punches. Meanwhile, Jagang was actually standing still, realizing that he couldn't hold on any longer. He rushed towards Jagang and aimed at his left hand. However, that same arm had been pierced with a poisoned arrow that pierced his heart. He decided to stop and consider the events of that day. Enough, because he was not at his best. In the central building, we ask all the workers to come together to thank them for their hard work. Must walk 20 steps and win over the sect leader behind him will see his feet limp. The coordinator orders him to be next, with no way out, Rotting moving towards the main hall. We recognize the realm immediately. As the soldiers attack him, but the chicane quickly takes care of them. One of the leaders steps forward to fight the king one-on-one. He uses the monstrous palm weapon, which can melt the enemy's skin and shoots it into the chicane with quick thinking for King to use a corpse as a weapon, shield, and quickly countered the attack by stabbing the opponent's hand with 2 needles. We noticed that there was something unusual about the chopping skills, as they far exceeded what we expected. Being hit by the mysterious assassin, he was then subdued by the leaders and forced to lie down on the floor. We used the poison mist to interrogate Jagang and find out who was behind everything, but the king refused to speak a word at that point. Leader Chu brought all the leading leaders in Unnam to meet with us both, accuse us of being behind tragedy recently, and demanding that he surrender. To avenge his son, we in a rage grabbed Jagang by the throat and dragged him out. Seeing the angry crowd below, we thanked Chu for gathering all the trash he needed. To clean up, he said, I will get rid of anyone who might get in my way, at any cost. Suddenly, as we held his rotting neck in the air, the king grabbed his hand and forced the poison in his mouth into his left eye, causing him to writhe in agony on the ground and remember the grave behind him. In the mines, the king shouted at us as our true identity. I degang the genetics of the descendant of 100 flowers of the Valley of Sorrow. The effect I am here for revenge. When the sky starts to rain, everyone is silent, and his face is very scary. Then he intimidated. Both were confused and didn't understand who had killed his son. When he was about to enter the main hall, to the high position Kong warned him that he would die if he entered. The king turned into a very evil and vengeful person. Earlier he acted. He allowed anyone unrelated to Death Medicine sect to leave the main hall. The poison sect leader insulted him and angrily started attacking him first. It was a one-person attack, then became a group attack. Inside the hall, vomit started to leak out in the throng, that being Kang's enemies. All are leaders with powerful and dangerous techniques. Although he fought back as much as he could, taking on everyone alone was too much. The king was eventually overpowered and defeated on the ground like his leader. To finish him off, we realized that there was poison in his vomit. He screamed for everyone to leave, but it was too late. They were poison bleeding from every orifice. Suddenly suffocated, he died of symptoms of snake venom. Then, from the soul in the great hall, only 3 people remained. We came and the other leaders confidently smiled. We knew that this kind of poison only works if it infiltrates the body, so as long as none of them enter, they will be fine. But before they could celebrate their victory, the other leader broke out in a red rash and started scratching the rot previously mixed in poison from the coat of ginkgo seeds to make the rashes on the enemy's skin, and it worked, just as he had planned the other leaders. Immediately, we couldn't believe he had been beaten by a child, so he used his signature technique to finish him off. Suddenly appeared and knocked our way through the ceiling and out into the courtyard. Only then did we realize that Mong was the real Dalong. Behind it all, we were angry and questioned Mong about what he had done to Poison Sect. Mong told how a man was crippled and had left him blind in one eye like he is now. Boys and his whole tribe had been buried alive by us 8 last year. After digging his way out, rotting has become a monster born, solely for revenge. Ming is so attracted to hatred and hatred of the flesh that he will not let anyone kill Rot except a desperate death he will bring to Jacane. Suddenly a girl with a covered face and a big hat appeared and urged Maine to end everything immediately. This girl was a master from Sichuan region, and we recognized her inner strength, being 100 times stronger. Then she interrupted their conversation. Chu asked Mong what happened to everyone's surprise. Mong confesses to killing Chu's son and reveals that the fall of the mature military was part of his plan all along. Before the two men could be precise, Mong his revenge and was able to behead Chu with his bare hands. The angry crowd rushed towards Mei, and then their bodies formed a circle around me. After finishing everything, Meng returned to the main hall to save Jakan. He put a needle in his head and used an unclogging technique, crazy meridians to open the meridians in his brain. He wished the chicane a huge success and said that once Realm reaches the apex, he will be the one to push the chicane off the cliff, smilingly twisting the death of the greatest expert that we, along with many other poison masters and martial artists from various sects. Justice caused a terrible commotion in King Ho. At the Hogwang Castle branch of the Murim Alliance. Next, while Jagong has a long time dreaming about what has happened, he thinks he has failed, but suddenly someone praises him for doing well, and a strong power wells up within him. The king wakes up and finds himself bandaged in a room strange. When Jagong wakes up, he doesn't know where he is, until his former partner comes over. The man previously invited Jagong to stay over. After hearing the incident at the conference, the man came to take Jagong home. But when he was about to go find a doctor for the butchers, he suddenly fainted. The king realized he had contracted a skin infection with horse poison. He thought maybe the man was accidentally caught some of the remaining poison from his body while bringing it home with himself. He couldn't let anyone else die, because he was determined to save. However, the man needed an antidote and needed a potion from a proper drugstore, because that would force Jagong to enter the village, which had already attracted the attention of the entire Murim Alliance. After that incident, as soon as he arrived at the village gate, his psychic powers suddenly went out. Control caught the attention of the two guards. Seeing Jagong unable to move, the two guards thought he was resisting them and prepared to attack him, but a girl appeared and stopped them. The guards claimed that it was their responsibility to check, due to the recent incident involving the Poison Sect. However, the woman appeared and incapacitated both guards with one strike, making they passed out for 2 hours, under the protection of the sect, and that by no means inferior gain techniques, and to use the moves that Run Kyun taught him. To knock you down, he gathered the locks on the tips of his toes and passed them through the heels, through the knees, through the center of his chest, and to his fingertips, especially when the sect didn't notice his body was undergoing changes, especially the meridians that had been blocked for years. When he unblocked them, shards of poison began to flow through his veins, completely tearing his body apart. The Kayun downrun technique passed on to him was Gale's finger generated by the lock circulating around the body. The poison shard that had been trapped inside his body flowed along with his psychic power and started to gather up to a point in his body, in other words, an enhanced version of the Gale poison. After splitting the arrow bullet into the vaporized sect attack, Jung Shin helped Yan stop the attack and was heavily injured. Yan is not afraid of the new technique of the beast, because he uses an antidote, but once he uses it, he destroys himself. Dan realized that the poison the game used was a completely different kind. His mission is to protect, rather than destroy. Jagang's sect hates pleasure. Sect Zhongshan is not as strong as him now. They will surely destroy him, but now they apologize to the sect. Zhongshan faints after begging for Jia Gang to destroy him. When Jia Gang destroys them, Zhang stops him. The sect has neglected them and focused on saving the sect. He feels very guilty for causing this trouble. The realm is about to leave. When Zhang encourages him to become stronger and to protect his loved ones, the sect brought the antidote. He says that the poison Yan got was not from him and again will not be responsible for bringing them back. Later, after Jia Gang left, an assassin came to destroy Yan and Yongshim. Even though he tried to fight to protect Yan, Zhongshan was not his opponent now. Once Assassin decided to finish off Zhongshan's sect appeared in attack and threatened Assassin. Jia Gang threatens Assassin to give him an order, but Assassin does not know that, only taking orders from his superiors and executing him, Assassin knows he will still be destroyed, whether he completes his task or not. To Deep Sect find culprit behind Zhongshan massacre says that Jia Gang's burden will be big now. Before Zhongshan leaves, he tells Jia Gang that whenever he faces sect, Jigal remembers. His martial arts skill was so fast. So that Jia Gang could not see his moves, he invited Jia Gang to follow him, and given the circumstances he was in, that he had no choice but to accept them. Arrived home and discussed the rumors surrounding the poison dragon belonging to the minor sect, then came up with two solutions, making the poisonous dragon a member of the minor sect, or eliminating it altogether. The woman named Dan Run Kyung, the girl with unshakable truth, prefers the first option. The king is surprised to know that she is the absolute female general and leader. The decaying White Flower sect elder asked, what should she give in return? He offered to teach her martial art techniques and provide her with resources. However, she declined the offer because she knew she was used as bait to lure others out, and he didn't like it. In response to the refusal, the woman became angry and threatened to kill him. In this critical situation, Chicane used her inner warmth to expel the poison from her body, and used the 12-needle thread technique to attack this woman. Jia Gang refused Run Kyung's offer, but Run Kyung said, if he refuses, there is only one result, that he is destroyed. The king activates the poison mist. Kyung attacks space with poison arrows. But he easily stops. The king uses his hand to squeeze face, and warns that the ruse is too arrogant, so he has this result. After a few moments of threats, Jia Gang still doesn't give up his decision. So Run Kyung changed her mind. He said he won't hurt her and he won't use her ruse as a trap. As you said before, the king realized that he was wrong and was too hasty to do it with decay. So he asked the king not to cooperate with him, only to sign a contract with him as the same subject space. Kyung will give to the sect 3 favors, as long as Jia Gang promises to Run Kyung something, but for the king does not seem to like what is said, but Run Kyung gave important news to the king, so that he agreed to carry out the king's proposal. We dipped 100 poisons. A poison that truly threatens one's life is one that affects one's heart and stomach and drives them towards death. The first favor that Run Kyung paid was medicine for poison, which was called extract powder and goodness. Second was power because the chicane rejected it. Learn martial arts skills from Ryun Kyung so he won't tempt them to rot, but he will teach him another type of skill called arrow bullet splitting. Although simple, the king can't get the order wrong, and the last aid Run Kyung gives to king is information. He says that there will be many people who come to find him like this, and one of them is a very dangerous Yan. Rincon reminds Jacob to prepare carefully, because these people are much stronger than the enemy. Finally, he has destroyed Jia Gang. Chicago agrees in the future for Jia Gang to save the life of someone he needs, to destroy Jia Gang. After getting the antidote quickly, he came back to save her, but he was too late. The people mentioned by Run Kyung took him away. They left a letter which was a trap to lure out a ruse, to save him, and they believed that Jae King would come to save his comrades. One team. But if King doesn't come, John would still destroy him because this was a chance to prove his strength superior to other competitors. Finally, he chose to save him. Yan was quite surprised, because Jia Gang was so young. He said that they needed to destroy the king, because he had destroyed many innocent people, to the king, saying that he only destroyed those involved for his sex revenge purposes, and he has nothing to do with gender, and he doesn't know who is behind the massacre. He wanted to take advantage of Jacob's distraction to catch him, but it rotted and evaporated, and made him angry. Realizing that Leon was losing his temper, Yongshen stopped him and solved the problem more logically. And now the chicane can't retreat, no matter what it is rotting, using a loud scream of a key skill and destroying all the warriors. John was impatient with his way, so he directly fought with true strength. Jagang attacked and entered. Then he mocked the sect just for arrogance. And he won't be able to win. Yan King ran away after being injured. Yushin said that Jagang was looking for a way to recover, so he chased Sect and didn't give him a chance to recover. Had found Sect hideout. He made fun of Jagang. He was just a person weakling who was trying to find a place to hide. But before, the Sect confidently said that he would destroy. Then, having said that the gap between him and the realm was huge, he learned the most perfect skills in the strongest sect, and the sect only learned trash skills from the small sect, so he couldn't beat Yan. But the universe didn't think so. The sect had crossed the line between life and death, and he was wrapped in the most perfect development in the environment. 6 days later, Lee informs him that Yan has died, and Quan is devastated upon seeing him. Yan marvels at the result he has produced as he hurriedly walks in Myeong, announcing that he has everything set up, and they prepare to go to Unnam-myeong. Left the map, and Rio was shocked when he saw 9 Diego clan castle formation 8. A point on the map. Lee uses it to destroy the wild. Azrio doesn't listen to Lee's warning, and arrives in Sichuan, assigns his advisor Sim to carry out this plan from the start. Now Rio realizes his plan has not only failed, but made it easier for Lee to reach his goal. Lee is even more unlucky than Rio. Lee was angry and warned Rio not to go overboard. Lee again still forgives Rio, because he is precious to Lee. To use him, he tries to convince Lee not to destroy the game. Lee wants to take over the whole world for himself, and warns Rio to leave his reckless thinking and listen to Lee's orders as a dog. Then after he took over the world, he probably bestowed upon Rio a castle. Rio accepted his offer, but the fact that Rio is not interested in the castle and the world, most likely returning Rio is only interested in Tagon. Jagang goes to Nanji village, where he has to overcome this village to continue the plan, his revenge. Jagang meets Myeong there. Myeong uses the Eye of Destruction and attacks you guys. But to escape from that, Myeong tells the sect that he got an incredible amount of blood on his hands because he is so young. With that atrocity, he took the life of Myeong's nephew. Myeong introduces him to Uncle Yan, and he came from Jagal to serve justice. After failing to get information from Jagang, Myeong is provoked by Jagang. He warns Jagang not to get confused, but this is trial or duel. This is the execution for the butcher. Since Myeong exposes the traps of the sect and the statue sect for mocking the banal, and he will not play a dirty game. Myeong says that the Jagang will be destroyed when he leaves Nanji village, and the Jagang will not be able to go to Sichuan because he will be arrested and jailed. In Yeagle prison, Run Kyun receives information about the Jagang from his subordinates, knowing that the Jagang will be in danger after destroying it. But Brent Kin did not expect that he would be chased by the entire sect. Jagang deliberately tired the Jiggle sect by letting them receive information every time Jagang wanted to leave Nanji village, which had cost the Nanji sect a large amount of food. The Dagal sect had to ask the Alliance for food assistance, and they promised that after capturing Jagang, they would cooperate with the Alliance to destroy lesser sects. Run Kyung knows that this is just a trap, which the slaughtering sect has prepared to lure him in. But Run Kyun is not worried. He also prepares it for the troops to fight. Diego's sect troops are transporting food when they are attacked by other forces, which causes them to start wreaking havoc. The leader calms them down and prepares for battle as they quickly destroy their attackers. The leader interrogated a soldier who was behind them, but the soldier said he didn't know it had been 3 weeks since Jagang came to Nanji. The village every day he was just practicing his skills, and was always being watched by the Jiggle sect. But the Diego sect didn't take any action. Though this gave more time to practice, the game doesn't know what Yeagle sect is waiting for. Sect was on his way when he was invited by someone to watch fortune-telling, and he was told by that person that Yeagle sect was working on their plan. That there will be a massacre in this village is coming, because the news of the slaughterhouse sect chasing the gang has spread everywhere, and everyone is focusing their attention on the village. If there is a mob in the village, surely all the blame will be placed on the slaughterhouse. That's what people tell you. the sect that there was a time when decency and justice were widely followed in the alleys of Ho-S, a virtue to risk one's own life to fight injustice. There was such a time, but decades ago after the Martial Arts Alliance was formed, one man became the leader. Everything changed the leader of the Martial Arts Alliance, currently the Haewoljanin he chose to manipulate. The different ideals and virtues of each group help unite Muram. Instead of excluding different thoughts and ideals, he seems to be talking about the greater good. But in reality, he creates a new world interpreted by people's gains and losses following the logic laid down by the Union of Martial Arts, and gradually becomes the Haewoljanin of hope, just being something you can sacrifice, easily for greater gain. The so-called godly soldiers and the venerable martial sect went corrupt and started agreeing with those ideologies too. And a world that the realm doesn't know exists anymore. It was only in the story long after the realm knew the true story. He wanted to stay and continue fighting. He wanted to witness the world that man said in his own eyes. The Dagal sect carried out their plan, locked the castle gate, and started to destroy the villagers. They saw the devil put up dynamite around the village. He activates the dynamite to create an escape route for the villagers, and guides the villagers to escape. Along with his intelligence, Jagang manages to help the villagers escape. Weiyong orders them to change their aim from destroying the villagers to activating the battle, which they have prepared. The army chief blames the sect as the one who destroyed, even though Jagang explains, they still don't do it. Believe me, they attack the sect, but with the current strength of the sect, easily destroy them without having to worry about the leader getting caught by the sect. He says that even if Jagang destroys it, Jagang's still surrounded by the Slaughterer sect, and immediately destroyed the sect. Then he attacked the army from the roof. The sect hid in the smoke to observe them. He used the knowledge he learned to break the formation to defeat them, who believed that this formation must have a weakness, because it was created by the human he chose to destroy every warrior, and then showed the uniformity of the formation. Then the sect realized that the enemy used the flute to announce the position of the 9-castle formation, and the 8 fronts are trying to trap the opponent in a circle. Endless fear, this formation which expands based on the enemy's actions, like a changing labyrinth, 8 entrances. These formations are not in the designated place. By continuously dispersing and repositioning, soldiers separate according to the enemy's movements. 8 entrances neutrally formed and continues to reform elsewhere. To split, collide, and circulate, it is really tricky circulation. The gears of this formation can easily find trouble. If the gears stop working, the formation user can find the enemy's position using this, and they slowly push the enemy to the place of strongest strength and crush them there. Then the sect disappeared in their formation. Myung was shocked when he found out about the life gate that was inside the 9-castle formation, and the 8 front sect finally understood the formation. He found the life gate was inside Death Gate D, and Death Gate was inside the gate Shadows, and now the realm is inside the gate of life, the blind spot of the formation that is inside the gate of death, because the formation is always changing. So Jagang messes up by setting traps, while on run by reverse formation and hide behind soldiers, and to break them then move. Jagang manages to get out of formation, but to get Kwan's confrontation. When he exits the battle and Kwan comes to take revenge on Lee, he goes to meet Jainin. He knows something Lee has prepared for the Slaughterhouse cult, and to destroy the Slaughterhouse, but finds that Lee has let his emotions take over. During his search, and Janine reminds Lee about it, he is completely engulfed in anger, and regardless of the realm's explanation, Kwan still doesn't care. Hwan attacks a sect at a very fast speed. The game doesn't react on time. Later he is injured after a punch. Kwan's sect receives another punch from Kwan. Despite trying to fight back, the realm is still thrown against the wall by Kwan. He is shocked by the incompetence of the realm, because the realm is much weaker than Kwan thought. Even if he just escaped from the formation, with this strength he can't lose to the butchers. The sect attacks Kwan to lure him closer. But Kwan learns the tricks of the butchers, so he counters with a punch. But his hands are still wrapped in the chains of the butchers. The sect releases the needle poison towards Kwan, swiftly destroying the needles and chains with his blade. Hwan suddenly appears behind sect and attacks. During the game, Danger uses his technique to respond to Kwan, despite his increased strength. Suddenly, the last move of the beast does not cause any damage to Quan. Quan thinks that the beast is challenging him because the universe is hiding its true power against Quan. So Quan asked your sect to fight to the best of his ability. Shit. Lee also found that his disciple Quan was furious when he learned of this news, because he forced Quan to stay, and at the same time blocked all information sent to Quan. But Quan still knows Lee, leaves immediately, fearing that when Kyung finds out that Lee is an adopted son, Bakley's unnamed, he will come and destroy him. Ryo came at the same time. When Run Kyun arrived, he claimed that he called Quan and stated that his goal was Jajang. He wanted to work with Kyung, and they would both benefit, because Ryo knew that when Ron Kyun appeared, Lee Bakley would definitely appear too. Lee has given so much attention to Quan that he doesn't want Quan to be destroyed by Run Kyun in Ryo. Sure, Ronkin also doesn't want to lose to Lee. The battle between Jagong and Quan becomes more intense, and they end when both of them attack and finish off the others. Wan destroys one of the sword's arms, thinking it is a victory, but the sect also manages to poison the Quan. For poison, the sect still does it. Not making things difficult for Quan continues to attack the realm, and with his current strength, he can't dodge Quan's attack. In a dangerous situation, Run Kyun appears and saves him. The sect is shocked by his appearance. Hwan believes Run Kyun is equitable as the Butcher, his two enemies. Hwan behaved disrespectfully against Run Kyun, so he taught Quan a lesson, standing in front of Kyun, Quan like a powerful skill. Hwan in front of Run Kyun did not spoil his youth. Despised Quan as weak, but very satisfied with Quan's ability, not worthy of being his enemy. In the end, Hwan was poisoned and fainted. He saw the attention of the realm, because it was not much better than the beginning victory, and defeat it was decided at this time, and appeared from the roof opposite the house. He read the killing intent. But Wei Yong did not run away. Wei Yong was angry at Run Kyun's arrogant attitude. Instead, he used it to stimulate Wei Yong even more anger. King warns that if Wei Yong stops him, don't worry. He replies that Sek soon surpasses Kyun, so current Kyun's run can't destroy him. Liang mentions Lee Bakley in the past. The occurrence of the feud makes him angry, and Kyun attacks Wei Yong. At this time, Ryo appears, and offering to help Kyun. Ryo says that even if he isn't as strong as Wei Yong and Run Kyun, as long as he helps one of them, there is definitely a possibility. Runkin doesn't need Ryo's help, though Ryo reminds Ron Kyung to finish the match quickly. Since we are young, just prolong the time to prepare the formation again. Liang is furious to be exposed by Ryo, and Wei Yong accuses Ryo of betraying the alliance. Martial arts to help the evil sect Ryo uses Quan to intimidate Wei Yong, and demands that he withdraw the Yeagle sect, or Ryo will destroy Quan meanwhile. Ryo is negotiating with Beyond for the sect to stick poison needles into his legs. But Ryo lost his legs long ago, so he wasn't poisoned. The sect is surprised that Ryo is still alive. Ryo tells the painful process of removing the poison from his body, that his desire to destroy the sect helped him overcome his predicament. Ryo says that the universe is still in his control, and all that he did to see the despair of the sect. After that, Ryo decided to take Wan, because only he can detoxify Quan. He reminds for his youthful goals, really only threatens Bakeling, so if Quan is still alive, it will benefit him. And then, if he gets destroyed, Ryo took this for Ron Kyun. To finish, he also quickly ended Wei Yong with Ryong Ultimate, instructed his underlings to retreat and brought to Kang, to leave the sect nightmare, so he woke up now. The sect is in headquarters secret, the evil sect, Ron Kyung said, that he couldn't be alert. Even though evacuating a large number of villagers, Jagong still felt sorry. When it came to the main village, he did everything worse, by sharing his hardships. When facing enemy Wang Ryu of Kyung said, that sect was Ryo's memory, and being a sect had a very special meaning. To Ryo, Run Kyung said that Ryo was the one who destroyed the sect, and also created its power. Ryo helped the realm perfect the revenge process, and push the realm into crisis. But the sect didn't realize Ryo's obsession with the realm would prevent the sect from taking revenge. But the news that the sect destroyed the Yeagle sect's 9 castles in the 8 front formations, defeated the valiant Phoenix, and fought the dragon. Now people call him the Poison Dragon, in the vicinity of the capital of Sichuan, hung up the Ryo establishment family, brought Quan here. That man blamed Ryo for bringing Quan to the Tang sect. while Lee Backley suspected the Tang sect of being very dangerous. For the Tang sect, Rio replied to the man, if he wanted to study poisons, he shouldn't care. And Rio had contributed a lot to the Tang family, so they should thank Rio for helping them, and suggested that the world with its current situation should join the evil cult. Then he gave Jiagong time to think, and left before leaving the room. Kyun reminds you guys, his sect needs allies now. The sect won't be strong enough to stand on its own, and gypsies are a tough and wild place, or after thinking about it, the sect realizes that he is very overwhelmed in this match, so thinking about life is also a miracle for the realm. The sect meets its seer in Nanji village. He is Raja Run's subordinate. Yan looks at Lei, sect's condition, and guesses he didn't escape Nanji village safely. After all, he was pleased to meet you. Sect there, he also suggested a sect to join that person. And he called it because here people help each other live. After talking to Payan, sect knows that. Medicine sect was the cause of that war about 10 years ago. They lost in a massive ambush to the poison sect because the attack was so unexpected that the poison sect was unable to fight back and was above the realm. If there were no variables involved poison, the sect would be in the position of the medicine sect now. That variable is the participation of the Sichuan family. In the family war, the Tang used their own secret techniques, poison arts, and powerful leadership to help the poison sect that was on the losing side, and they gave the ability to launch counterattacks against some medical sects because of the family's involvement. It was the Tang who made the real difference. In this war, the flow of war led to the poison sect, which was started by the medicine sect, then fell one by one and were either annihilated or annexed under the sect poison. The poison sect joined the Murim alliance. Right after that, no one was on the medicine sect's side because they didn't want to be on bad terms with the alliance. The sect had no one to turn to for help and finally faced their goal. The game gradually became confused after heard the whole story about the poison sect. In the medicine sect, he didn't know what to do. Rio next. When he was worried that Rio was looking after him, he would become a threat to their plan. But Rio explained that everything is still under his control. Then, he didn't need to worry. Rio said that the scythes had many untapped skills, and they could use them to contribute to the Tang family. And Rio reckoned that if Lee investigated the Tang family, no evidence would be found. Goodbye to everyone in the sect. Lee Backley found Rio, mindlessly rushed to beat. Rio only blamed Backley for being impatient and attacked Rio again. Rio just counterattacked when he found that Backley had disappeared. Then from behind, Rio Backley appeared and performed a punch that engulfed Rio. The underground didn't stop there, continued to attack Rio angrily, and asked Rio, where did he hit Quan? Then Rio explains that he brought Quan to the Tang family to save him because the poison Quan Rio contracted is incurable. Backley gets even more angry because he knows that everything was caused by Rio. Rio who lured Quan to Unnam, and Rio who released Run Kyung. Backley wants to destroy Rio. Rio, as Backley asked, will he destroy Run Kyung himself? And he is sure that just left the sect, supervised by others. They want third class. They were the Tang family. A Mei's sect and King Chen's sect. They had cultivated their strength by barely keeping the balance between the three of them. And the butchers that would have caused a lot of commotion in gypsies recently. Definitely not welcome in Sichuan. They would investigate every movement of the sect. Half-day before, Sichuan, the king of Chen, summoned John to tell him some things about dragon poison. Then he assigned John, the 10th stint, to oversee the slaughterhouse. While the Wasak was in Sichuan, 100 exams and contemplated why Bakchan gave him such an easy task. But once collecting the poison left by the Wasak, he lost track. The Wasak and John panicked and immediately went to look for the sect. After he left, the Wasak left his hiding place and continued on his way. The game ended in Sichuan. He didn't plan ahead, so the realm didn't know where to go. Next, thinking about it, suddenly a voice was heard. He searched all the villages within his range to find the sect that amazed the beasts, and John asked permission to sit at the table with the beasts. Seeing that and John was hungry, the Soja sect gave his food, and John then introduced himself and friends her friend. Aim to destroy the sect, shocked that he has disclosed important information to people he doesn't know, be it friend or foe. When Lynch starts eating, the universe reminds him that the food is poison. He is scared, thinks the sect is joking. But your sect is serious, and don't get me wrong. that even ninjas know that food is poisoned. More importantly, this poison was not carried out by the sect, but by the people at the table across from them. People from family introduce himself as Tong Risham family, but Risham is angry at John because he used poison in the area controlled by King's sect. Chang and Amaze's actions realize that the situation is not right. Sect leaves, Risham gets angry and attacks the sect because he thinks Jagong has insults him, and John stops Risham's attacks and threatens him. Risham's behavior insults King Chen's sect, so he won't spare Risham, and he returns the attack to Risham. Risham's teammates quickly stop the attack before Qigong leaves. Risham warns Jagong not to show up. Then, he would not let the Unjan sect catch up. He wanted to go with the sect to supervise the sect. Otherwise, and John would be punished by the master. Trained with the wall for another year, which was terrible for, and John's sect wondered, did Unjan deliberately play, innocently, or if he really is, because Qigong is known as a poison dragon. But when he went to the side of Jagong, he was very relaxed, and not afraid at all. He said that, because he had sect King Chung to protect him, he didn't feel worried at all, which made Jagong jealous of Unjan. Unchan even thought that Jagong worried about him, so that when John was deeply moved, south of Guanjigil and Mount Lohan Runkun appeared. Rio waited for Runkun for a while. He took Quan with him, and made Quan faint. Later, before arriving, he is just waiting for Kyun to wake him up. Run Kyung doesn't bring him to the sect as agreed. He announces that he is coming. Rio isn't angry, but he generously hands Quan over to Run Kyun, and despite his suspicions running, Kung still wakes up Quan is just as Kyung predicts. This is Rio's dirty trap. When Run Kyun wakes up, Rio attacks Run Kyun and creates an explosion with poison arrows. Run Kyun's partner rushes forward to help him. But being surrounded by Jacob's sect forces, Rio continued to attack Ronkin head-on. He found that Rio had suddenly become stronger. He had wreaked havoc on his body and did everything to destroy the realm, which was Rio's motivation. After that, Ryo and Quan simultaneously attacked Ron Kyun, making Run Kyun unable to dodge. The current situation is very dangerous. Rankin lost an arm and was poisoned by Rio, and he is currently unable to use magic. If he doesn't want to endanger his life, Rankin's feelings that his strength was weakening, and they quickly managed to come to Run Kyun's aid. After releasing one of Kun's arms, he was depleted of energy and lost consciousness. Rio and Kyun now look pitiful. He urged Ron Kun to give up, maybe considering the situation. And Kyun was angry. He summoned strength to fight against Rio, even if he had to sacrifice his life. Kyung points out it's time to stop Run Kyung. He wants him alive, as there are so many people who need his help. After that, they jump into the sea and escape in Sichuan. The sect is annoyed with Yunjun, who asks the sect stupid questions after knowing that the evil sect will be destroyed quickly. John didn't want the sect to leave, but before he could stop, for sect to sect through a bag of poison powder, and John caused him to be stunned by the sect's instructions when he came back to drink the potion, and then he got rid of it and used something to defeat the realm. Unjon doesn't want the sect to leave, because many people will be destroyed, but becomes the eyes of the sect. If he doesn't come, the people of the sect will also be destroyed. Hearing him say that they must be destroyed, because they are evil and the fire of anger in the rebellion. The people from the evil sect is more important than anyone in this world. The sect used snake venom to destroy Bell, so Unjun decided to use a more powerful method this time. 2 members of the Tang family also came to fight to their game, so they wanted to fight again. Grisham and Heron were shocked to see the butcher eat the blood-purifying viper. It was a mythical animal. Even martial masters would die from their blood boiling from within. Then, after being bitten by it, but for those who have mastered the poisonous arts, it was the best elixir. However, Unjon didn't want them to interfere in this fight because it belonged to the king of the sect, Chang agreed, and he offered to speak nicely to the butcher. Then his run tells the realm he will help maintain the sect, and John returns to the sect and will drop help. Finally, after a while, he just follows the sect and doesn't bother. Jagang has been 2 hours since Chigang left, and he's running non-stop. Even if it wasn't for it, Jagang is running desperately. Sect doesn't know where the big motivation comes from. He just knows that if he misses, he will never get it. Unjon's second time helps Sect, and he wants to bring the game to move, so he will go faster. Run Kyun and his subordinates managed to return to headquarters. They pretended to be in front of the door headquarters and were looked after by the guild members. After finding them, Run Kyun told everything. It seemed they didn't want to give up Kwan in the first place. Diego's sect was ambushed there before, and Kwan was on the same side. With Mangrio feeling, Run Kyung is guilty. Because he didn't anticipate this happening, his comrades are furious. After hearing this, they wanted to start a war and attack the Yagel gang, but couldn't, because doing so was rash and dangerous. Run Kyung wanted to pack up and leave, and he was going to stay there to buy them time, but none of them agreed. Because they, wanting to sacrifice his best for Run Kyung was touched by this loyal teammate, carefully left, and took one in his arms. But Jenin was disappointed. As Begley could only bring back one arm, he said he was very interested in the plan. Rio, and he went to meet Rios very carefully, not destroying him en masse. And he also joined the Merm Alliance to destroy the sect. Even though he changed his name to Wal Mio and is a Buddhist practitioner, what Mio Wal did was against his beliefs Run Kyung, exposing Mio Wal as a Buddhist. But he is still in this fight, because he still wants to slaughter others. Mio Wal still shamelessly justifies himself that what he is doing is only destroying evil and bringing justice to others. As the direction of Buddhism Run Kyung warned about what to do. Food Wool violates the three great Sichuan Pact. And because it caused the Wall massacre, Neil said that he was only a bystander. As long as Run Kyung did not use a fatal blow against guild leader Nanchuan Neil, the wolf would not participate. Mio angered. Rumkin, she laughed evilly and informed the Nanchuan sect later not to worry about Run Kyung. Fights break out enemies. Find shelter for those who are unable to fight in the guild. Brun can no longer stand. Stay silent and watch his comrades get destroyed. He must overcome the walls of Neo to save his teammates. With incredible speed, Yo-Wol injures Run Kyung in the first hit. Soso gets hurt trying to save another teammate. One of them is Sasoso gets beaten and stands up to fight. But because they are weak women, they are easily crushed by the enemy. Rum Kyung communicates with Beyond so that he can save those unable to fight. But Pian is now trapped by Non-Tuan guild leader. Run Kyung is reminded by Wol Mio to pay attention to the match. He draws all his strength in giving a decisive blow to eat wool, but because his body is still poisoned, he can't use mule wool. Magic finishes Run Kyung. When the cult shows up to save him, it looks in the wrong direction as he is too focused on revenge. So Jagang forgets to be grateful and protect the people around him. He vowed to eradicate those brutal people disguised as justice. And Nanchuan sect is one of the leaders. Nanchuan sect is also easy to handle by Jagang. Others also added results that are not much better. They finally realize that the game is the eyes of mule wool. The dragon poison flashes. When he sees the butcher and he changes his battle target from Run Kyung to butcher, Yo-Wol goes out of control. The others run in fear when they see him go mad and slaughter Unjan. The others appear. He reminded one of the 5 precepts not to kill, which was a precept that Wol Mio ignored. Unjan was so annoyed that the keep slipped away while he was resting and made him chase it down the alley. Unjan was shocked when he saw the scene in front of him. They borrowed the name of justice to destroy evil, but they viciously destroyed even the unarmed. Moreover, Neo Wool was originally a Buddhist monk. He was only allowed to observe, but he directly participated in destroying innocent people. Unjan was very angry, and it was still Wol, the 5 laws in Buddhism. Mio Wol warned John not to care about this, if he didn't want to get involved, and John still wanted to save the situation. So Mio Wol beat, and John with enthusiasm. Power Sect tried to attack me, but failed. Wal Miao Wal can save through attack. Butcher despite using all the strength in his body. Butcher can't even stop the attack. Wal Mio Deganu poison powder to slow down Wal Miao, and he finds that Wol Mio's sword can't cut things non-lethal, which the sect was about to strike a decisive blow. When Wal Mio inhaled the poisonous powder, when she was knocked unconscious by Mia Wool, Unjan was worried when she saw Jagang was seriously injured. Jagang tells to leave. He will hold Wool so that Injin can escape. Sect tells the machine that numbers can't decide who is right or wrong, and he also tells the machine that there are fights in the world that can't. You back off so alone from Yo would see their voices. He continued to attack the butchers, and John decided not to run away but stayed behind to fight with the wasps. Sect couldn't avoid Mio Wool's attack, so he was slashed and injured by the mule wool. No intention to stop, He continued slashing more towards the sect immediately. Then, after Mio Wool's sword touched Sek's body, when John immediately attacked me, Wool with working sound, and Wool Meow was done to hear the machine sound. Made, but Wool Meow shattered her own eardrum to negate the movement. Then Mio Wool moved to attack. She injured by Wool Meow's attack. While the realm is in despair and thinking it's over, Run Kyung transmits a sound to the realm. She asks him to use the healing crochet. After that, he will show the sect one last move. The sect appears in a strange place, where many powers gather, and he has to solve puzzles to reach the power. That is, he has to find a way to get to the Emperor's residence of the sect, see the shining jewel, and it contains incredible power. Decision of pure internal energy that had become part of his realm, where he was told to gather, and he answered the 7 treasure rooms, Jade, the 3 locations of danger and someone or ancient to the middle ancient, and passed down the ancient of the 3, the one that connects humans to the universe. To get a guess is an acupuncture point. But the sect is wrong treasure room. It is where the Emperor's banquet is held. It is not his residence. The universe chooses from the middle ancient and true sect unleashed new source of power he is.